Thank you for tuning in. We have um, a friend of mine I've known for a long time, somebody who's insanely hardworking, and I've seen her come from the small leagues to the big leagues, and then wherever else she is these days. We have one of the best photographers in the world,
Aw.
Ashley Barker. What's up?
What a nice introduction. So good to be here with you, Jody. Thanks so much for inviting me on. Loving the
Yeah,
podcast.
I mean, we haven't seen each other for probably about a year since the last time we were in Whistler or maybe 2 years ago now, at a little bit of a party before COVID hit. What have you been up to?
I live now in California. I'm still a Canadian citizen, but yeah, I live in California. I'm still shooting lots of photos, more so in the commercial brand space. I am a producer. I started a production company, a creative producer, I would say. So yeah, working with a bunch of brands on different stuff and just living life.
I feel like I could just flow on to the next conversation, but what is that? What is all those titles that you listed off there? What do you do?
Okay.
It sounded good, like commercial photographer in these spaces, but I was just gonna nod my head, but then I was like, damn, I actually don't know what that is.
So commercial just being more like mainstream photography, I guess. Working with brands like particularly like I work with brands like Lululemon, Nike, Samsung, Motorola, like all that falls under like commercial, so to speak. So shooting for them, whatever their image or whatever our image or campaign might be, versus just like action sports, which would be like shooting for Burton or Rome or skateboarding or surfing. And then creative producer is more like bridging the gap between just a straight producer that just executes, hires, sort of like puts the puzzle together versus having a vision and actually like bringing the more like creative side or the photography side on it and mixing it with production.
Sick. Well, I feel like from knowing you and what you've accomplished, that's a great role for you to fill those shoes. I feel like you're the person for that. And I would assume California would be the hub to seek out these endeavors, because that seems like the mecca for all of those. You mentioned Lululemon, all these big businesses, as far as not running dry on work. In these times, I feel like that would be the place to go to for almost unlimited work, as long as you were continuing to build your network.
Right? More people, more pay.
Totally. No, there's some truth to that. Especially in photography. You move to a small town in Alberta, eventually everyone's going to be like, we've already, you have the candle company and you have the small tea company, and you run out of things to shoot.
Right? Big fish, small pond. You got to go. It's okay to be the smaller fish in a huge pond. You can get more, find more. I don't think I said that right, but there's some sort of analogy, I'm sure.
Is it cutthroat? Like, or is it hard to find work down there, or is it pretty, is it lucrative? Are you busy? Or with COVID and stuff like that, have you found that people are hiring in-house more and they're not,
That's pretty interesting. I would say like always as a photographer, it's always a hustle. It has always been a hustle. Like finding work is not, it's not like easy. It doesn't come, I shouldn't say
silver platter.
Yeah, like you always have to kind of grind. You always have to be networking. You always have to be like, on people's mind, because at the end of the day, people usually hire like what's right in front of them. If the talent is there. So, if your friend works at this brand and you're talking to them a lot, you're going to be on their mind. Versus if you kind of just like crawl into a hole and stop talking to people, like it's, unless you are actually on the top and everyone knows you, it's going to be harder. And that's why a lot of people have like photo reps when they are very good, because that's what a rep does. They literally are just like reaching out
and finding you work.
Yeah. So as a producer, you know, as a photographer, you get hired, you usually get hired just for the day or just the campaign. If that's like a few days, then you just get hired for that. And then you know, you go, you come, you walk away. As a producer, you know, for me to do like a 2 or 3 day shoot, I am usually on that project for, you know, like 4 or 5 weeks, pre-production, and then there's post-production, which is usually like a week. So you're just way more involved, and it is, I have to say, it's so much more satisfying because you actually like get to be involved in the creative process. You're not just showing up on set and being like people, you know, trying to fix the problems there, which is very fun as well, but you get more of not just the insight, but you also get more, you get more involvement. You get like your actual creative input like put in, and you know, can decide where it's at or where it's going. And so it's with those clients, like finding those clients is harder, but they usually stay longer, and they usually give you more projects, or, you know, it's just sort of a better longer term relationship.
Totally. I mean, you would hope brands would almost trust that you, as a photographer who has credibility, who've worked for all these, you know, companies in the past, they would just give you creative control. And the worst thing would them to be like trying to them to be the creative with your eye. Because I feel like a lot of times if you just kind of, I use this a lot, but like just drop off the hard drive at the end of the day with somebody who doesn't see your vision, sometimes you see them piece it all together and you're like, damn, I could have done a way better job. Like, this is kind of painful. This is what you did with my work.
Been there, done that. Not like seriously have done that. And usually it's just, honestly, it might just not just be like the selects, it's just like the color treatment. Sorry, speaking layman's terms, but it's just like the processing that they use afterwards. So like what it actually looks like versus like saturation or color.
Yeah, the editing.
Yeah, sometimes that stuff can be like a total miss or a flop, and sometimes you're like really satisfied, like you're actually like pleasantly surprised on how you know, I'm not the best. Other people have great eyes, and yeah, maybe better than me.
Has anybody ever butchered your work so bad that you didn't want to work with them again? You're like, I don't want my photography. Okay, to put it in an analogy for people that do painting or any sort of trades work, we get houses that we have to paint, and we have to do them quickly and just shitty and just come in, get it done. And my boss, Rube, also a legendary professional snowboarder, would say, I don't want my name attached or affiliated with this project because you're not letting me do my work to my full capability. So I'm ever wondering if you get, you know, put in a situation where someone's just like, we need all these photos in a small amount of time. And you're like, yeah, for sure. Thanks for the money, but like, don't attach my name to these photos because you're not allowing me to fully get my vision across or something like that. And you're like, and then I don't want to work with you again. Because we tend to not want to go back to those clients, even though sometimes you're in a pinch and you have to do it. But I mean, my least favorite thing is taking zero pride in my work and then having somebody affiliate my name with that job that I took no pride in.
I totally get it. You know, the weird thing about like not being in action sports photography is that, or even I guess like mostly shooting for magazines, is they don't put your name on shit anyway.
Oh, they just buy the rights, and then there is no you. Yeah, you never think about it. It's not like a snowboard magazine where you get to go to the bottom.
No,
you ever see a Nike ad? There's never a photographer's name at the bottom. Never.
No, never. You got paid for that shit. So the only thing you have is like to put it on your website, and then it's yours. So yeah, I mean, more photo shoots than not. Like, there's always going to be shots that like I don't like 100%, like thousands, you know, but particularly that they might select, and like it doesn't speak to me or anything. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's not about me. It's about them. So I just care if the client is happy and we're delivering the best possible thing we can with the tools that we have. You know, like sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's the model, sometimes the client forgot the friggin' product. Like, you know, there's all sorts of stuff and things happening. So yeah, 100%. More shoots than not. I don't want to put my name on it, but that's okay.
I love the honesty. Let's rewind here. and go back to where this all began, what was Ashley's childhood like?
Mm. You know, I lived an amazing, like I'm just so blessed. My parents are just the best, phenomenal. When I was born, my father worked for an airlines company. He was very high up there, and we moved a lot. So I was born in Vancouver. We moved to Toronto like a year later, and then 2 years after that, I moved to Calgary. We flew for free, so we traveled for free. So by the time I was like 6 years old, I probably flew to more countries than most people will in their lifetime. And then he got laid off when I was 6, so that sort of hardball stopped. But yeah, I grew from there on. I just lived in Calgary. I have 2 older brothers. And yeah, I started skiing when I was like 2.5. First time I think we went to Whistler, and then after that we'd go to Lake Louise. That was our local, I shouldn't say local hill, because it's like an hour and a half from Calgary, but that was the hill of choice for the most part. So I took ski lessons there till I was like 12, and then my mom let me follow my brother and start snowboarding. And yeah, pretty cool. We went up every weekend. Yeah, I was in the ski racing program, and yeah, I just followed my brother around, honestly. Like my brothers are 3 and 5 years older than me, and Nick, who's the middle one, he started snowboarding a year before me, and then I just wanted to be with him and his friends and follow him, and they were 100% into backcountry, 100%. So we would hike. I would spend half the day hiking, following them. They'd make fun of me, get me stoned sometimes because it was more funny, and then I learned how to pin it down the ski hill. Very young age.
I feel like that right there, I never asked you that before today, and I feel like that gives me a lot of context on how you got to where you are today, because you had the older brothers. Because I mean, I feel like entering the backcountry and stuff like that's a pretty intimidating field with a bunch of professional snowboarders, and you were fearless back then. What age did you get into snowboarding, just for some context?
I think, yeah, so that was 12, 6th grade. And I don't think I skied again for like a decade. And I never turned back to skiing, but like then I would, go out for fun on skis sometimes. But yeah, I started snowboarding then, and there was a couple years where I took like lessons at COP and in the half pipe.
Sick.
But I think that was not until I was in 9th grade. And other than that, like my brother never went in the park. So I was straight up hiking. We'd build booters sometimes in the backcountry.
That's epic.
Yeah, I took like Abby classes when I was super young. Actually terrible story, but like my brother had 4 friends pass away when he was in, my oldest brother, when he was in 12th grade. So I was in 7th grade, and from there on we all buckled down, like the whole community buckled down. Everyone was in avalanche courses. Like we all took the courses and took it pretty seriously after that. But
he lost 4 friends in an avalanche.
They were all in 12th grade. It was in November. It was at Fortress Mountain, which is not a mountain anymore, but if you're like familiar with Inception, where they film all the ski parts, that's all filmed at Fortress. Since they've closed, they're now like a cat ski operation, and I've actually done photo shoots there, like for Billabong and Lululemon, but they're not like a ski hill anymore. But they went up pre-season, so they're not open yet. It was a Sunday. They actually went to go pick up my brother in the morning, and my brother did not wake up because he was partying too hard the night before. So he missed his ride, and they hiked just above one of the ski lifts, and the avalanche, it took them out. It took them all out, and all their friends went out like the next day, and were doing search and rescue. You know, they knew they had passed, but like to actually find their bodies. So two of them were like holding hands, actually. So, but yeah, so obviously that was a huge impact, especially on my brother, because, you know, he thought he could have saved them had he been there, but, you know, I think he would have died had he been there. So it's like one of those things, but it definitely like changed the narrative for everyone in terms of, you know, just being a little more safe. And yeah, one of the girls or one of the guys was actually like my really good friend's older brother as well. So, but.
Wow, that is beyond devastating at a, yeah, wow.
It sobered you up for sure. But like still, you know, I was pretty young. So it was just still in 7th grade. So I was still, you know, like probably not as emotionally
aware.
Yeah, at that point, but sorry to take it that way. But
no, I'm really glad you did. I think that, I mean, this is primarily a snowboard podcast. And I mean, people venture out into the backcountry and there's some takeaways there. You know what I mean? That was not that far off of a chairlift, you said. Young kids, it sounded like they had even maybe possibly at that age taken their AST1, and you know, something like that tragically happens. It further, I don't know, instills the importance of learning about the backcountry and realizing that it's a complex terrain beast that you need to respect and try and limit your risks out there, because avalanches do happen and people do lose their lives to them, and and a lot of the time it's avoidable. That's the biggest thing. It's like a lot of the case studies we've done at Baldface and stuff, it seems like, you know, 8 times out of 10 it's like, oh, if this person would have had eyes on them, if they would have went one at a time, if they would have spaced it out a bit, if they would have had the proper gear, there's ways to at least limit those risks. And I mean, I don't obviously know the context and how those kids passed away, but I mean, it is a snowboard podcast and it's nice to just share that story in the hopes that people, when they're venturing out there, just participate in being as safe as possible and getting educated.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like it was a ski hill, right? But there'd been no like, no one had been up there yet, so there was no hard pack. There was no, you know, like stuff wasn't, it hadn't settled yet. But yeah, it was a long time ago.
Wow. To take this a little bit back into photography, you're snowboarding, you're building booters in the backcountry, you have older brothers who are clearly massive inspirations on you. When did you pick up a camera?
Yeah, so my oldest brother actually had the biggest influence on me. So I like loved photos. I had photos all over my room, like, you know, all through middle school, and loved seeing snowboarding. I remember Terrier being all over my walls. My brother, after that year, he went tree planting for the summer and he brought back a bunch of photos and they didn't work out the way he wanted them to. I remember specifically him saying like, you know, oh, fuck, God, this didn't turn out. And I'd always played with my parents' camera, but they could never like tell me how to use it. You know, back then it's film, it's SLRs, like, it's like, what does this shutter speed? What is an aperture? What is this? And they had no idea. It was just like, you point and pray. Basically at that point.
That's my style.
Right? And so I guess like my brother like tangibly actually like buying a camera himself and using it, you know, still all film, etc. But I was like, fuck, I can do that too. So at the time I was working, I started working really young, like I started a babysitting club when I was 11. So I'd saved up quite a bit of money. I think it was dishwashing or working at Earl's or something at the time. I was either 14 or 15. And so I went and bought my first camera. I bought a fisheye and just like the kit lens. And my neighbor, still one of my best friends to this day, he was a really good skateboarder, like sponsored by the local shop or whatever. And you know, first day he's like, you got a camera? Oh my God, you're coming with me. Let's go. We got into the skate park. And yeah, I just started shooting him and all my other friends that skateboarded. And, you know, they were, one of our other friends is an amazing DP, like cinematographer or like camera operator, I guess you would say, if you don't understand those words. And he was making a movie for the skate shop, probably 100% pro bono, but he was making the movie and he was like really on the guys. So yeah, I would just roll around with them, and he drove a Yukon, and I would go shoot as much as I could. And, you know, they'd have better photographers come in all the time that actually knew what they were doing at the time. And when I say know what they were doing, they actually like knew skateboarding as well. You know, they could tell you what like an ollie heel flip was, where I'd just be like, all right, just tell me when to shoot, like kind of deal. Cause I don't know what that is, but I'm watching and it looks cool. And so I'd learn from them. And yeah, I took classes just at the college, paid for those classes like after school. And yeah, so I started first in skateboarding, very amateur in skateboarding. And then on my 18th birthday, I met a few snowboarders actually at the bar. Actually, you know, it's a funny story. Actually, TJ Schneider came up to me and said, hey, you should go say this to my friend. And it was literally a pickup line. And he told me to say, what was it? I heard you have something amazing to tell me. So I walked up to this guy on a cane, where he was sitting, but he had like a cane. And I said that to him, pretty cute. His name was Scott Shaw. And I started hanging out with him, and he was friends with TJ, Dwayne Weeb, who else?
James Beach, Dustin Craven, probably.
Yeah, well, I think Dustin came on the scene the next year, but yeah, Andrew Hardingham, Jonas, Kelly Stefanik, and apparently there was like a little bit of a lack of photographers in Calgary. So that winter, they're like, oh, you have a fisheye, you can shoot skateboarding? Oh my gosh, you're coming with us, like come and shoot with us. And they were like embraced me with like opening arms. Because I think at the time it was just like Mark Gallup, great photographer. He was working, I think, for Transworld or Snowboarder. He was staff for someone, but basically he was never home. And then there was Jeff Patterson, who was big, like he was a photographer, but also he built like parks and jumps. So he wasn't always available. And so I was there, camera ready. I was super psyched to be doing that. And that was my introduction to snowboard photography. We actually, like, me and Scott moved to Golden that winter and spent the winter out there. He had a snowmobile, I did not. He would take me out. I'd sit on the bench. These are old ass snowmobiles.
You would sit bitch.
I would sit bitch, yeah, exactly. And he would stand over me with my backpack and we would go up. And he was an amazing snowmobiler. He learned from like Cody. What is Cody's last name? He was a sled neck. He was really good at snowmobiling. So Scott knew what he was doing. And yeah, that was my first winter. It was pretty fun. Wow. And then actually that summer, and I was also waitressing. You know, I was waitressing, so I saved up quite a bit of money and then took the winter off and then waitressed through the spring. And then we went to New Zealand for 2 months that summer. And that's when I really saw like, you know, what I shouldn't say real pros, but like the other world of pros were doing. Like, I remember Sean White was there. He was getting snowmobiled all over Snow Park. So like Tora Bright, Andy Boulanger, Travis Rice was like doing hand plants on like these big copings above the quarter pipe. It was like really like, holy shit, like this is the industry. This is what's up.
Damn, you covered a lot there. One thing I want to ask you was, you go from skating to shooting snowboarding with like TJ, Dwayne, and stuff like that. At that point, did you switch from film to digital, or is this film still?
This is film still. That whole first year, it was film, New Zealand included. And then
are those photos turning out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang.
I had a light meter, you know, like I took classes. Like I was not gonna repeat my brother's mistakes. Like first day I had a camera, I was signed up for photo classes. So I like understood the technical side of things. But you had to keep in mind, it was also $1 a photo, like $1 a slide at that point. So I'm not like shooting a bunch, you know, like I'm trying to stay within a budget here. So you don't just, you know, you go buy like 10 rolls of film and you're like, okay, hopefully this lasts me like a couple months sort of deal.
Yeah, it's not an iPhone where you just take a photo of a sunset and take 45 photos of one sunset at $1 a piece. You're like, wow, I could have went out for a lobster dinner.
Right. Well, like fresh out of high school, you know, like you're counting your dollars, you know, like I'm still living at my mom's place, or like, you know, just yeah, I was pretty conservative with money, so I definitely like count it, and then also like saving up for new lenses, and like, you know, snowmobiling is expensive, all that stuff. So it's definitely that. And then digital just started then, and my second winter, I also lived in Golden. I think halfway through the season, I went and bought a digital camera.
Dang, and if that's just coming out on the market, that can't be cheap, like anything that first gets released.
Right? No.
Right? No.
Nothing was cheap. Well, even like the film camera, like you needed 10 frames per second. Like you needed the good camera. So can't remember what, but I'm pretty sure that camera was like $3,000 for the good, like
body.
Yeah, for the 1V. So this is the film camera. And then I think my first digital camera was a Canon 20D. I don't know what that means even anymore, but
Me
yeah,
neither.
I'm sure it wasn't.
Did you get any photos published on the film camera that like ran in a magazine? Like what was your first photo that got ran?
Well, so my first photo that got ran was actually like from the first day I shot skateboarding.
Your first day you laced a photo in a magazine?
Dude, sure, just like luck. Just absolutely not magazine. It was a newspaper. It was
even better.
It was a bi-monthly like colored newspaper. It was called Straight. It does not exist anymore. But like the Millennium Skate Park, new skate park in Calgary, had just opened up, and that's the park we were shooting at. So you know, I took the photos and all on film, not even slides, and I went and, you know, had them printed out 4x6s. And the skate shop that my friend, his name's Ian Tois, he was sponsored by the skate shop, and they had like a bulletin board. You know, they have like a bulletin board with like flyers, and like, you know, anyone could just put like anything up there. And I went and pinned a photo of him. It was like, I don't know, it was like 50-50 down like, you know, a little bar or something, like, you know, nothing crazy at all. But you could like see the park, and the newspaper just came and they took it off the wall or off the bulletin board. And I remember specifically because the guy working, his name was Frenchie, and he was a skateboarder too, and he'd come every once in a while. And he said he let them take it. And so I didn't know that. And the first time I saw it, actually, our other friend, Jason Cooper, he saw the magazine in like another skate shop, and he opened it and he's like, "You guys got a photo published." So that was my first skateboard photo published. I think I was 15. So it was pretty cool. It was like, I knew right then, like, this is awesome. Definitely pursuing this. You know, I think they even butchered my name. But that was okay. That didn't matter. In terms of snowboard photography, I do remember I definitely got an ad of a slide with Rome of Dwayne Weeb, because that was my first big paycheck. I think it was like $1,200 or something. I was like so stoked. And then I think I got some photos probably published in like Snowboard Canada. I wasn't submitting to anywhere else like at that time, but yeah.
And it clicked, and you thought to yourself, I want to do this shit once you got something ran.
Yeah. Well, like I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't like, you know, at that point you're not like, ooh, this, I'm going to make a career out of this. This is like, cool. I have to grind at restaurants. This is a fun thing to do on the side. Oh, wow, I made money doing this. Cool. Like, you know, doesn't pay for the camera, but like, you know, I'm return on some of the investment, but like more fulfilling on the inside than anything else.
And you left off before you're in Golden with Scott Shaw, snowmobiling. Are you there mainly for pleasure and just riding the hill and riding powder and stuff? Or are you going up there every day with Scott, was an up and coming professional snowboarder from the Canadian scene? Are you trying to like document and get photos every day? And do you have the hustle of like trying to collect these assets for brands and stuff? Or are you just like kind of snowboarding every day and then you bring your camera every once in a while?
I don't think the first year I was there that I went to the ski hill once. And like that ski hill would have been a mile from where we lived. And that's Kicking Horse, and it is an epic hill. But no, we went snowmobiling like almost every single day, like every single day for that. I think it was probably 3 months. You know, it was probably like, because he had a bad knee that winter, and I think he was good to go in like December, and he would have, you know, I was like pussyfoot, but like he would have got into it slowly. And then so I think we were there from like January to April or something. And we were sharing a house with a few other people, but they were weekend warriors. They would only come up on the weekend. And so yeah, we found a couple other friends in town, like Justin Bond, I remember. So we went out with some other people, but like if we were alone, we'd mostly just like he was teaching me how to snowmobile, and or we'd go out with like other sledders, and he would learn better how to snowmobile, just also like looking for different areas and different stuff that we could like have other people come to. Like he was really dedicated. He was awesome. But you know, like we'd always try and get other people, try and get Dwayne and stuff out there. But they just, you know, they were kind of more on a rail program. And I was trying to remember who else. And then that second year, I actually lived with Robin Van Gin. She came and lived out there. Her boyfriend at the time was out living with us full time. I can't remember if Robin was like really full time. I think she was like half time. She was like part time in her van, and like started working with MGT. So she was like going to Whistler and stuff. But when she was there, it was awesome too, because she was like keen, hardworking. She would come out, she would friggin' she would send it on any jump that the boys wanted to build. But yeah, no, it's like I don't remember going to the ski hill. There was that second year, there was like a dry spell for a whole month, and that's when we started going to like Lake Louise. So we drive like like an hour to go to Lake Louise and just go to the park and shoot in the park, or I'd snowboard. And yeah.
Did you kind of realize that if you learned how to snowmobile, that would be a huge asset for you to know how to ride that thing to like go and shoot photography? Or are you kind of like, we're sledding, this is fun? Because I feel like somebody who's going to get into photography now, that's a up and coming photographer, is like, if I learn how to snowmobile, I'll have a huge upper hand on other people because I'll have access to the backcountry and be able to keep up with these people. Or are you kind of just tagging along and just holding on to the back of the sled?
No, that definitely clicked. Like I wasn't interested in shooting on the ski hill. Like I was interested in being like, just from how I was, you know, introduced to snowboarding and just following my brother and being in the backcountry and stuff. Like that was the appealing part of it. The appealing part was not to go shoot on the ski hill, freezing cold, to shoot what everyone else can access. It was always, my mind was always in, you're gonna find stuff that people have never done before with people that are amazingly talented, and we're gonna go and we're gonna, you know, connect with nature, like be out there, and this is awesome. So yeah, I definitely like was like, cool, snowmobiling is my tool and vessel to get there. It wouldn't have been as engraved as it got like 2 or 3 years later, because the snowmobiles back then, man, they were hard.
Like what year? What sled would have been like your first one that you and Scott are doubling on and stuff?
I don't know, maybe like 2003.
Oh yeah.
Or
so a big old tank.
Yeah, like a big tank. And so like if I got it stuck, I would not be able to get it unstuck myself.
I still can't get mine unstuck by myself.
Yes, you can. As long as you're on a hill, it's fine. I mean,
no, I'm fine, but
for sure.
I've always lucked out and have been filming with some bigger gentlemen from, you know, anyone 6'3" and taller and weighs over 200 pounds. They can just roll those sleds. So I'm like digging and pulling and tugging and yeah. But they're way lighter than when, I mean, you would have gotten stuck in 2005.
Yes. But yeah, that's evident when you look at like what people can access now versus then, for sure.
And did you feel like it was hard to find opportunity as an upcoming photographer being a female, or did you feel like you mentioned that your crew had like braced you with open arms? Did you feel like that was forever? Or was there ever a point where it was like, whoa, like I feel like I've hit like a wall and it's hard to get opportunity now, and they keep bringing Patterson and these other photographers and I have to break through this wall? Or did you keep getting opportunity after opportunity?
No, it was a grind. So they embraced me with full arms. But you know, Dwayne, James, not so much James, TJ, like Searman, all the like those guys, they hit like rails. They hit a lot of rails. So like all you need to be doing is be good at shooting photos and like lighting at that point. But like to shoot in the backcountry, you have to be good at getting to the backcountry and communicating and understanding all all the multifaceted, like all the stuff that's involved in that. So that took years. That took so much time. And obviously you needed your own snowmobile to do that. But for those years I was coattailing on the back, anywhere Scott would go, I would go too, basically. I mean, he would definitely go on like a couple trips or whatever else, but like while we were living in Golden, I would come too. So we'd have people like Hardingham and stuff, but like Scott was better at snowmobiling than everyone else because he did it so much. So there was that. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely some huge roadblocks. I remember one time I was shooting with, I don't remember who I was shooting with, but I remember another photographer calling him and being like, why are you shooting with her? Like, I wanted to, like, she's just doing this as a hobby. I do this professionally. Like, he's like, well, we already told her she could come. And he full blown, like, was really mad at them. And I was like, oh, what? Like, that sucks. Like, I'm trying to, like, like, I'm trying to make a career here, but like, but I'm pretty empathetic. Like, I also understood where he was kind of coming from, I guess.
I mean, now that you've shot for so long, what would you say if you were out shooting with, DCP and or maybe some younger, I don't know, the younger generation now, Austin Sweeten and I don't know, and Robin Van Gyn, and you have a day and you're out there stacking, and then there's a new up and coming photographer. There's definitely a little bit of a, oh, you're coming today?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a faux pas. You're not supposed to, I don't know, this is something maybe it's just like something I learned from photo school, but like if someone sets up the shot, you don't shoot it. You can help them, you can assist them, but like you don't shoot it. So if you're going out with two photographers in one crew, like you better have that discussion beforehand. And maybe that discussion is, oh, I'm shooting for Burton, so I'm going to tag along today. Is that okay? Or like those conversations actually have to happen prior. But like I worked at Camp of Champions. I've worked at this old camp called SAS down in Argentina, and there was like always another photographer. So I mean, you just gotta learn how to navigate around it, or like what you want, or what the ultimate goal is out of it. Like,
that's a touchy one. I've seen that happen a lot. You go out there and there's a photographer that you lined up, whether it's shooting rails or backcountry, and then somebody's like, oh yeah, we're just shooting rails, so I'm bringing my other buddy. And like, the one I feel like it's always the photographer who's been in the game longer is just like they have the conversation. They're like, hey, like I'm out here shooting action photos today. And then the one photographer kind of picks up and they're like, okay, I'm only out here to shoot the outerwear on this person, and that's all I'll shoot. And the guy's like, okay, if you're only doing that, that's fine. But like, it's definitely, I've been out there long enough where you hear other photographers talk like, damn, like, and then this other photographer from another crew shows up, sleds halfway up, shoots the photo, and then they get the print landed. It's like, damn, because going out there, like you've mentioned, to understand how to learn backcountry safety, to be able to hang with a crew because everyone likes you, to be able to snowmobile and keep up and have all the gear dialed. There's so many assets you have to bring to be even thought to be even mentioned of going out into the backcountry with an A+ crew. So, to have all that dialed, there's wow. You don't want to,
there's lots of layers to it. And you know what?
There's lots of layers.
It's also very political. Like if you're a photographer and you're shooting freelance and another photographer is shooting for Snowboarder magazine or some other, you know, publication or another brand, then like whose photos, like you're going to submit your photos here, you're going to submit your photos over here, and then like who's in the wrong here? Because magazines do not like it when another angle of something shows up before they do. I've been there. Like, yeah. So I mean, I can get into it. I have a really good story actually about that.
Please elaborate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this was I was out with Mikey. So this was the year Transworld was still making videos, and I went out with the Transworld crew, and it was Mikey Rentz, Arrow, Nimala, Pat McCarthy, and Devin.
Devin Walsh?
Devin Walsh, yeah. And we had two filmers. We had Joe Carlino and Anthony Vitale, and we were going up to Face. Yeah, we were up at Face. And so Face is like, it's pretty far. Like it's kind of a trek to get there, as you know, like it's in Pemberton. So it's like kind of a far drive. So it's, you know, you're not up at the mountain in like an hour or something. You know, it's like probably 3 hours or something before you're actually like in the Alpine. Anyway, we went out. I think it was kind of a mediocre day in terms of like, it was just pretty overcast. And we ended up like building 1 or 2 jumps, maybe just like one big booter and like scouting a couple other things. No one else was out there. So we like, those guys don't really like to do that, but we like we built this jump. And then at the end of the day, Devin turns to me and he says, "Hey Ash, like, fuck, I really want to ride with you guys again tomorrow, but I am committed to Scott Surface." And Scott was working for Transworld at the time. And he said, "Is it okay if Scott comes with us? He has to shoot me for something. And I guess this is the only day he can do it or whatever. And we'll probably just like go shoot some photos while you guys do video or whatever and whatnot." And I was like, respect, like, yeah, of course, you know. And I shouldn't say I was green, but like,
you were new on the up. You were up and coming, like pretty hot photographer, but not like a vet at this point.
I wasn't even like new. I was just like, Scott was more like, he was definitely more established and probably a better photographer and all that stuff at the time. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like that's totally fine. So then Scott comes the next day, and here I'm thinking like, you know, this, I'll call him an asshole because he's a good friend of mine now, but like this asshole, he's not going to shoot the jump because that would be the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do to someone. Like he didn't put a shovel in that jump, and we built it for like 3 hours yesterday. So we go there and we go straight to the jump, and Scott goes and claims his angles. He literally went and claims his angles. He's here, he's there, he's do. And I was just like, all right, fuck it. Like, don't take this personally. Don't even give a fuck where Scott is shooting, because he obviously doesn't care about me. So just shoot how you will, shoot what you want. And that's what I did. So I went and shot, you know, like obviously I'm not going to go stand. I don't want my stuff to look like anyone else's. So I'm not going to go stand beside him. Yeah. But he's moving a lot too. And, you know, it's a jump. So if the guys are going to hit it each 3 times even, you know, that's 12 hits on a jump. You kind of want 12 different angles, slightly different, or, you know, basically. Anyway, so I shoot it. We both shoot it. The whole day goes by. Everyone's shooting both things and la-di-da, whatever. So I know that Scott works for Transworld. So fuck, I'm not submitting any photos to Transworld. Like those photos are going straight up to Snowboarder, because they're more likely to get used. You know, Scott's photos are already paid for.
And you're freelance at this point, correct?
Yeah, I was freelance. So Pat Bridges, like at Snowboarder, ended up grabbing a bunch of the photos, and I think one of them ends up running in the first or second issue of that year, of, you know, just in whatever, like in the magazine. And then so I get a call from Nick Hamilton. Nick Hamilton at the time was the chief. No, Annie was so he was the photo editor at Transworld, and he calls and he lays it on me for like 5 minutes. This guy is just fucking roasting, like absolutely roasting me. Like, why would you do that? You knew Scott worked for Transworld, like da 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 da. And I was like, oh shit, there goes my, there goes any photos that were gonna get published this year or whatnot. I think thought I took it like really well, you know, like I let him talk it out, let him like kind of spit it at me. And then I explained the story to him. And I was like, don't you think that your staff photographer should know like that he, you know, A, should be asking me, B, like I built that jump. I put in the time. I was there the day before. Like, why do I even care where Scott's photos are going? You know? And so that conversation ended, like, I was like, oh, fuck, you know. Turned out the next year, Nick offered me a job and I took it. But like, I thought right then and there, I was done. I was like, oh my God, Kapoot's like, Transworld opportunities gone.
I would say that you're not confrontational at all, but you're not the type of person that will get walked over with for no reason.
Yeah.
And that was the exact, you let him spill his 5-minute beat, you listen to the whole thing, you wait, because you're kind of sitting on like, you know, you actually have a legitimate point that's super strong, which is I built the jump, which is like every snowboarder. I mean, it doesn't, even if you don't snowboard for, you know, for a living, or you don't go and build jumps all the time, it doesn't take anyone to be a rocket scientist to know if you build something that you most likely should be able to shoot the photo on the thing that you built. And Scott, who's a great friend of mine too, was you know, I feel like a lot of photographers back in those early days, because I was really close friends with you, because when you first had come to Whistler, me and Andrew Jeeves and my friend Chris and stuff, you were like sleeping on our floor all the time, and you had a truck and a sled, and you were hustle and bustle. And I mean, I don't think I've met anyone at that point who had the work ethic and the motivation that you had. And I felt like when I watched your whole career, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years develop into this, you know, it was like watching your friends be a rep sponsored rider to like a legit pro. And you're getting all, and every photographer that I would shoot with, I feel like at that point, everyone had something to say. And it wasn't like it was negative or something. It was just the classic, I don't respect how this person got to where they are because I'm just jealous. People just weren't putting in the work ethic that you were willing to put in at that time. To me, you were somebody who would sleep in their car overnight if you could get a photo published in a magazine. You would grind it out harder than anybody. You were the hardest working person in snowboarding for like 5 years. The motivation to get shit done around the clock was there. There was no like off button for you. And it was super inspiring. But just to bring it back to every photographer back in that Ashley Barker blow up years was just jealous that you were getting more shit published than anybody. And every crew wanted to shoot with you. You were a good photographer. You would work hard. You had amazing photography skills. Everything you were shooting was getting published. It was like, nobody was like, oh, I'll choose this photographer over Ashley. I felt like at one point, everyone's like, we'll take Barker, which was a huge thing in snowboarding at that point. Cause I don't think there's ever been a snowboard female photographer that someone like Devin Walsh would choose to shoot over like a lot of these legends. And they would choose you. They'd be like, yeah, we're going out with Barker for a week straight. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. The Burton crew's shooting with like, it was like a lot of stamps around the clock of like approval because you were fucking getting it done.
No, thank you.
It was like a lot of stamps around the clock of like approval because you were fucking getting it done.
No, thank you. That means a lot to me. But I have to interrupt and say that like I wasn't the first. Jess Mooney was the first.
Oh, I like that.
She was definitely the first. I never met her. I saw her once from afar. And she disappeared off the scene, I think, the moment I entered. I think
so she had the sled and everything like that.
Yeah, I 100% like, I tried hard. I always have like a huge work ethic. Like through all of my high school, I never took a spare, and I worked at a restaurant 3 days a week. I don't know, like something in my genes just like gave me some sort of drive that like, you see what you want, you go, and that's it, like go for it. And there's no point in like sitting around otherwise. And I do have a lazy side, like absolutely, but I knew in snowboard photography that I wanted to be recognized for hard work, but like also I wanted my photos to be like really different and distinct. And so like I'd try and use flashes as much as I could. And also like to use those, you had to go up on the shitty days, because that's when the epic like magic happens with those flashes. And also then people are not like trying to hit the biggest things possible. They're trying to hit like more creative things. And those are like, because lights like cannot just like light up anything and compete with the daylight and whatnot. So you actually like going up on stormy days or just like short days, like in December, like going up in December and January, like is actually the best for photography. You get like really cool lighting, really moody lighting, like and yeah, I was not afraid to throw my flash on the back of my snowmobile. And then I think just like learning snowmobiling felt so much like harder. I don't want to say it's harder for a girl, but it is, just because like we're just built differently, and like the muscles just like aren't quite there. You know, like I don't know, like you get into a fight with a guy, like he's probably gonna hurt you, like, you know, like no matter what, like they're just strong. You guys are stronger, so it's harder to learn. So I think like it took me so much to get there that once I felt like I was doing well, I was like, I just kept setting like higher and higher goals. And in my heyday, there was like Transworld had this business issue, and there would be like what was it called? It was like
exposure meter.
Exposure meter, yeah, for snowboarders and for photographers.
I remember it.
And like I was like, I cannot like fall off top 10 on that thing. Like once you're on there, you cannot get lower than top 10. So I was always, you know, like you gotta shoot a lot, but you also have to shoot like quality to get those photos published. So I was definitely.
Did you ever get number one?
No.
Bullshit.
I think Andy Wright mostly got number one.
Andy Wright is sick.
Yeah, he is sick.
I love Andy Wright.
He's great.
So good for him.
Yeah. And probably like Blotto or Jeff Curtis too, because you know they shoot with the Burton crew like 365 days a year. It's hard to.
Oh, I love Blotto's photo. A lot of the snowboard photographers who've been around for a long time, you know, I feel like all of them, their styles constantly adapt and stuff like that, and some of them have been really, really fun to follow.
But there's some
like snowboarding.
Yeah, there's some photographers you can just tell it's one of their photos. Like Ian Rutt definitely had a style. Kevin Zacher definitely had a style. Cole Barish like definitely had a style. And then there was like kind of the rest of us that was like, could be him, you know.
Ollie G had a distinct style. But when I was a kid, I was like Ollie G like looked like, I was just like, oh, that's Ollie G. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I'm forgetting a lot. But
yeah, we could go on for days about all the legendary photographers that have been in the game, but I don't want to emphasize, or you can't overemphasize how much hard work you put in. And I know that you briefly touched base that you think it's just like a gene, but do you ever feel like you had a reason for that motivation, or like was there something driving you? Because not everyone can extract that, and I feel like a big takeaway for this podcast should be like you had a work ethic that you don't see that in a lot of people. It's a rarity to work that hard for your goals, and it would just be nice for you to let us know how you did it or where it came from.
Thank you, Mom.
Shit, Ash, people want to get going on their goals, and I mean you done did it, so like let us know.
The older brothers that you cannot keep up with, so you're constantly going, no,
I bet you that older brother thing had something to do with it, you know?
Oh, 100%. If you want to get spiritual, I was born on a Tuesday. People are born on Tuesdays tend to have more energy. It's actually like one of their things. But the drive, I don't, you know, and also, so I said I had like an amazing childhood and was like really cultured and really rich in like love and culture. But when I was a teenager, or even like from 7 on, my dad became an entrepreneur, and my mom, eventually she became an accountant, but the argument was about, it was about money. Like that's the only thing I ever heard them argue about. And they weren't like terrible at arguing about it, but like, you know, my dad inherited some money when his parents died. My mom wanted my dad to pay off the house, and like she was just never independent financially. And I didn't get an allowance, you know, like after like I was 10, all my friends would get allowances. I grew up in a really nice neighborhood, like really nice. And so everyone got allowances, you know, like, and their parents would take them shopping. My mom took me shopping one day before school started a year. Otherwise it was all up to me. Like one pair of shoes, you know, like 2 pairs of jeans, some shirts, you know. So I think that really motivated me. I became like, you know, pretty money savvy and knew that I never wanted to be codependent on anyone else financially. So there was that, but like the truth is like photography wasn't even like that. It's not that, especially at that point, it's not really about the money. So I think like it, and I'm sure like a lot of ego was involved, just like wanting to be good, like, you know, not wanting to have people be able to say like, why are you going out with that photographer? Like she's gonna hold you back, or like she's not good enough at snowmobiling, because that had happened, you know. Like I remember one day I showed up, you know, I think it was the People crew. It was like Zach Marvin and what is his name? Daryl Mathis. They were coming out from America, and they were coming out right before a storm, and they hit me up to go shooting. I had shot with Zach in South America before, so he knew I was a good photographer. I'd never been in the backcountry with him, and you know, they lined me up like a few days before. I was locked in, and I showed up at the parking lot the morning before, or like the morning of, and just a huge snowstorm had just hit, and they said I couldn't come. They're like, oh, sorry, one of the other riders like invited this other photographer because we saw how much it snowed and we didn't think you would be able to like keep up. Like in the back of my head, I knew I was a better snowmobiler than probably everyone there except for their filmer. But it was just like, what the fuck? I thought it was, I couldn't even believe that happened. I thought it was so disrespectful. And I remember I ended up actually going, you know, because I was in the parking lot and something happened to like Matt Beardmore, maybe it was, and like maybe even Rusty. We ended up like going to a different zone ourselves that day, just like they were, you know, I don't remember what happened to their crews or something, but like ended up going out and like getting some photos, or Andrew Burns maybe. But I just remember like being so choked and so hurt and being like, what the fuck? Like, why didn't you tell me in advance? I could have gone up with any other crew, and or not any other crew, but a different crew, but also being like, man. So it motivated, you know, I didn't go sit in the corner and cry. I was just like, all right, work harder. Like, don't let people be able to say anything like that, you know?
Fuck, that must have sucked. I know you said you didn't go in the corner and cry, but I've definitely been in situations before where you just feel, I don't know what the word is for that, but like belittled, or just like being overlooked, or being like just looked at in a way where it's like, this guy probably isn't good enough to do that. You know, that's a shitty feeling, because if you don't know that person's not good enough to do that, it's like, and you wonder if it was more like, well, she's a girl, so she's probably not good at sledding. And you're like, and the funny thing is, you're like, motherfucker, you guys are all going to be stuck and I'm not. I've been sledding for like 8 years and you grew up sledding with Scott, who you said was sledding with one of the best sledders back then. It's like, but they just overlooked you immediately, probably because you're a girl. And I feel like that must have happened more than you would like to admit, almost, until at one point, everyone, when you go shoot with Mikey Rentz or Devin Walsh, I mean, to me, those two in particular for the Whistler backcountry are like the dude. They've been out there. They've logged more hours than anybody, you know, Anthony Vitale, Devin Walsh, Mikey Rentz. And if you are a photographer and you can hang with them, you can go and hang out with the People crew.
You know, what I think the big difference is there is like Mikey's so confident and so good at snowmobiling. Like the first time I went out with him, that he wouldn't blink about that, because he would know that like he would be able to help me and get me out of a situation if he needed to. Whereas those guys wouldn't have that confidence and ability to do so. I mean, obviously I was vetted at that point, that it was like, you know, hey, she's great, she can come. But again, like that confidence would have come from Mikey and Arrow being like, what's the worst that can happen? We're gonna have to dig her out a couple more times and we have to dig another photographer out. Like, and they were used to shooting with Blotto, who apparently hates snowmobiling. So
Hates snowmobiling.
couldn't have been that great, you know.
We've been talking about snowboarding, snowmobiling a lot and backcountry, but I mean, you shot a lot of rails. Is there one that you would rather shoot? Like, did you enjoy backcountry more or rail riding more?
I liked because just coming from the skateboard world, I liked lighting things. So I thought the rails were like pretty fun in terms of you could be creative. Also, like you didn't, you know, like going out in the backcountry, you're so secluded from the rest of the world, which is great for like some time. But like when you do that for an entire winter, like it is hard to get anything else done, because not only is that like the time spent in there, you know, like you're getting up at 5 a.m. and you're getting back at, you know, depending on what time of the season it is. But if it's like, you know, March, you're getting back at freaking 9 o'clock, you're pooped, you're, you know, rinse and repeat, and your days off, you're just dead, or editing photos, you know. Yeah, seriously. With like rail riding, you know, like you can literally like jump in the car, you can take an email, you can take a phone call. So that was very different. Also the crews, like very, very different.
Very different.
Very different. You know, like a lot of rail riders, but like a lot of rail riders usually aren't very, I don't want to say hooked up, but they're a little bit more like gnarly, or a little bit more, what's the word? Like, I don't want to say hesh, but like dirty. Like they just don't have as much money too. They're not as supportive.
Yeah, they're dirtbagging it.
Yeah, totally. So definitely like different crew, different vibe.
I mean, you used to shoot with Dope, you know what I mean? You'd go with like E-Man and all those guys like all the time. And I mean, they would love shooting with you because you would get shit done.
Yeah, and like most of the time, you know, for the most part, that would happen in like October, November. So it was, or December. It was like before you could even shoot in the backcountry. And like backcountry riders also have to go put in, like they have to put in some time on their board early season, you know, so that they can land stuff. So they got to go to the park and the hill and all that stuff. So it was just like another way of another avenue to be creative and still be doing that stuff. But like, I mean, holding metal at -30 isn't that fun. It's just like, it's all about like the people and the vibe, and like and sometimes you could get like quite efficient, like lots of photos done or whatever. But also I also got to try like a bunch of different stuff, you know, like experience, like sort of play with the lighting and all that, and also being able to like capture lifestyle. It's hard to do in the backcountry. Like it's a lot harder to do in the backcountry. It's probably one of the harder sports to like actually document like authentic moments that are like happening besides like this peak action. So that actually,
I agree. And I think that it comes off in film, and in my favorite thing about lifestyle filming and photography in the streets is it looks so authentic, and it just looks like, yeah, it looks so true to what it is. Snowboarding in the backcountry, it's just like the over glorified hot dude with the sled helmet on eating a sandwich photo or video is just so boring. But it's hard to capture any of those other special moments out there.
yeah, it really is, because you have to think, you have to take off, you have to stop, you have to take out your camera. Like there's so many, like, man, it's like fighting out there with your, it's like man versus himself as a photographer when you're out in the backcountry. Like, oh my God, that looks cool. Oh, we should send someone up there to like do a slash, or like, oh my gosh, like we should stop here and take some portraits or like some lifestyles or like whatever. But like, A, you can't talk to anyone. You're in your sled helmet, like everyone's roosting around, and like, you know, the goal, especially for the snowboarders, is to go find a feature and hit a feature in the light, not get hurt, and get home safely. So
pretty much
anything else is like it's harder to it's harder for everyone to come together and like really, yeah, shoot that stuff. It's just not a priority. But yeah, with rail riding, it's like shooting any other sport. You can capture those authentic moments. You can run around and, you know, move things around, or like, oh, we're having a lull point, let's go shoot some portraits over here, you know. So
well, a snowboarder's favorite day is going out and shooting with a filmer and a photographer. A photographer's favorite day is when a filmer doesn't show up, and a filmer's favorite day is when a photographer doesn't show up.
Totally.
Because they shoot completely differently. Like when a filmer is like, oh my God, a photographer is not here. Perfect. Let's do this and this. When a photographer has a day alone, which happens way less often, that's like the dream day. Like, oh my God, okay, let's get a slash here. Let's get you to ollie this tree. But some of my most productive days with photographers is when we're not filming.
Yeah, 100%. Those are like dream days. So like that also happens when you get hired for the day by a brand, because then that's when like the athlete really recognizes that they're obligated to do that stuff. And that's when you as a photographer have more liberty and creative freedom to actually ask them to do stuff. Totally. And stop and pause and take those moments. Like it doesn't like, oh my God, I need to get home. It's yep, let her shoot this. Oh, we need this. Like, because they have to, that's how they get paid. They need their brand to be happy. So like heaven forbid that the photographer came back and reported that, hey, we didn't get any lifestyles because, you know, they didn't want to this day, you know, instead of the season, but like they didn't want to, or, you know, it's on them. Then like, and that's just not something that a rider would let happen, you know?
So style for photography, before we transition and I ask you why the hell you left shooting snowboarding primarily, where did you get your style from for shooting snowboarding?
Where did I get my style from? I guess so. I try to pluck it from a lot of different genres, I guess. But like also, I don't know, you know, I never tried to like copy anyone or take like anyone's style. You just kind of find inspiration. And at the end of the day, nothing is original. Like everything's been done. Maybe not in this lifetime, but someone else's or whatnot. But like generally, yeah, there was a lot of people that like I really liked their photos or their, you know, their published photos. You only see their best photos, you know. But I wasn't really trying to mimic like anyone's style. I really like Richard Avedon, but he's like a fashion icon of a photographer. That was someone that I always like tried to look for inspiration for like actual portraits and stuff. And some of the words that he would say, like that you can go anywhere with your camera, like you don't have to like be fearful when you have your camera, which is so true. So true. Like from shooting out of a helicopter, like when I actually like shoot out of a helicopter, like nothing phases you. You have a camera like in front of your face and you're shooting. And it's like, you're so focused on like what's going on and directing the heli pilot, like to do everything and like not blow it, that like, it doesn't catch up with you until you put the camera down. And that's when your like stomach comes up and you're like, holy fuck, like, look, I'm hanging out of the helicopter kind of deal.
Oh my Lord. We can't dive over this. Tell me that first experience. Where were you and what was it like when you got buckled up into a side of a helicopter?
Oh man. I don't remember my first, I don't know if I remember my first one, but I do remember the first time someone let me direct the heli pilot. And that was on a Billabong shoot at Fortress. And that was, shoot, it wasn't Sean Aaron. It was, I don't remember his name, honestly, but great filmer, like great cinematographer. And he was like, Ash, you can tell the heli pilot what to do. And that just didn't happen. That didn't happen before because they're always like filming for movies, and you know, as a filmer, you have to get shots, them taking off or riding the whole line from start to finish. And generally that's like the priority, and the photographer, like, it's okay if you miss something or like, you know, like, so it's just not the direction really should come from the filmer. And in that case, like, we were both hanging out, but he was like, no, like, you can do it. Like, I trust you. You guide the heli pilot. And at the end of the day, the heli pilot is in control, like 100%. He's in control. You know, it's like it's like someone flying a drone and you're like clicking the button while they're, you know, of taking the picture while they're actually like shooting from the drone. Like the drone pilot is the one who's actually like kind of guiding the experience, you know?
You're also depending on them to get back to the ground safely.
Yeah, but like, I mean, heli pilots probably more than not are the ones that fudge the actual experience because they'll like turn the wrong way or like block you, and all of a sudden you can't see the rider or whatnot. But yeah, I don't know if my first experience was like at Super Park or I just don't remember where it was, honestly.
Either way, that would be a pretty exhilarating feeling, hanging out of a helicopter and shooting through a land. I like your perspective there, because you would as a photographer with your camera held up to your left eye or right eye, you would be so focused on getting the photo that it wouldn't really sink in until you remove the camera that you're hanging out of a helicopter with your body weight, like most likely, the majority of it faced off the open side. Must be a pretty wild feeling.
It's like one of those state of minds that's like pretty unhealthy to be in a lot, like over time, like if you're in that state for a long time where it's like fight or flight basically, because you're like, for people to understand, you are harnessed in, the door comes off, we call it doors off. So they take the door off the helicopter, they have to land, take the door off, and then you strap in and you harness yourself in, and then you're hanging out of the helicopter. You're still sitting like on the side of the helicopter, or if you have two people, one person's like on the bench. So your body, most of your body is actually in the helicopter, but you're hanging out. So your camera's out, your like body is out, and you're up high and pretty exposed. It's pretty cool.
Well, the only way that somebody would have a similar feeling is if you have been skydiving before, and your coach or whatever you want to call it gets you to like stick your legs out of the plane, or your trainee, and then you're doing it tandem style, and they're like, okay, just like trust me and stuff. This happened to me. This is a story about me in particular, and I was in Pemberton, and it was my first time skydiving with Russell Dalby, and they put me on this harness, and I hear him clinking around with a bunch of the harness pieces. And he's like, oh shit, I can't really get this harness on to me. And I was like, and I'm hanging out of my legs are blowing out of the airplane. I'm like, yo, like pull me back in though. Like, dude, like, what are you doing? And he's like, shit, I can't get it. And he's like, oh, he says, I'll just jimmy rig something up, like jimmy rig, like just try and like, magically put something together that's not there. And then pushes me out of the plane. And I'm about to like cry, puke, die, feel. And he's like, just kidding, we're good to go. And I was like, motherfucker, you just ruined the entire experience. Like, what a horrible joke to play on somebody. I was like, dude, what a messed up human.
Heart rate straight to 210. You're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Where's the body bag? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's just like, oh, like, chill out, relax, enjoy the view now that you're flying down towards the earth at like terminal velocity. I'm like, I can't enjoy anything, bro. But anyways, that was the only feeling I'll ever have that's similar to yours, of hanging out of a plane and shooting photos. But I did want to ask you, you transitioned out of shooting snowboard photography, which was a huge part of your life, and you made a complete smashing success story out of that, and have thousands of photos and covers, and are definitely a highly respected photographer in all regards, especially in the snowboard field. But you do end up transitioning kind of not away permanently. I'm assuming that if somebody asked you to come do a snowboard shoot, you'd be more than happy to do so. But why did you find yourself kind of moving away from the snowboard world, and what kind of drew you into this new avenue?
Well, I got in December or January 1st. I think this was 2015 or 14. I'm not sure. One or the other. 15. I got laid off of Transworld, and our conversation in December was that the magazine's about to get a little bit thinner. Everyone's wage wasn't a salary. You got like a monthly retainer and then basically unlimited travel budget, but that we're gonna have to trim down. But came January 1st, I got the phone call that like sorry, we just like have no budget. You're the last photographer on, like it's over kind of deal. And to get that phone call January 1st was kind of tough, because I was like, fuck, like it's hard to figure something else out. Like the season's already started. It's not just started, but it's like we're in the season. So I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, you know, giving me the self-talk, like, it's fine. Like, you were doing this before, you know, like you can freelance. There's still lots of opportunities out there. But yeah, so I kept the season going. I actually tried to switch it up quite a bit that year. I was like, all right, so how, you know, you have some gaps to fill here. So how are you going to do that? And I started shooting with skiers as well. Kind of just like the best people I could find. I already had to do this with Transworld, or like you kind of psychologically, you're always having to do this, but you're realizing like, all right, what's my highest return? Like, who am I going to shoot with that A is going to get photos, B that gets like ads? Because you need those, you need brands. Like even on a good retainer with Transworld, like you need brands to buy ads from you or pay you to go on shoots with their athletes, so that their photos are more likely to be in the magazine, because that's like their advertising or their free advertising, so to speak, at the time. So yeah, that happened, and I started shooting with skiers as well, and then just like kept up with the season. But like something in me was like, all right, like new mindset, like what's gonna happen here. And there was a week where I was going out with Andreas Wig and Craig McMorris, and who else was there? Maybe no, not Alex Canton, not Torres. There's other people like coming in and out. And I had worked out a deal with Red Bull Canada at the time, like that I would shoot with Craig for 2 days, but I would shoot with him over like a longer period of time. But when we got 2 really good sunny days, that they would get all those assets for a good dollar amount. And yeah, so I was going up, and we were going to Rutherford, and we had probably gone up like 3 or 4 days and gotten nothing, like just got skunked every day, just because of the weather. Like we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't build a jump, like you just get out there and sit in the cloud. And so come day 4 or 5, I showed up at the parking lot, and I remember Andreas walks up to me and he's like, oh, hey, like Craig's not coming today. He's just burnt out, he called it. And I'd never done this before in my life. And I was like, really? Like, fuck, that's what I wanted to do this morning. And I was like, you know, I can't do it. I made a selfish choice, like self first. I don't regret it at all. A self first choice, kind of for the first, not for the first time, but like I'm really empathetic. I never like ditched anyone. And like I'd see photographers do this all the time, but like if you committed to a crew and then a better crew hit you up to go shoot, like I'd see some photographers like switch, and then you'd get the call like, oh, our photographer bailed, like can you shoot with us? So I was very conscious that I would never ever do that, like because I had been in the other side of that. So I never did that. And I remember that morning, like, you know, and that was not a thing. You don't bail on your crew, you know. I was like, and there's lots of people in the parking lot, and I was like, I can't do it. Like I got shit to take care of. Like Craig's not out. Like how am I gonna, you know, sort of pay for this day? And I went and I drove home, and I got a call a few hours later from an agency in LA that was working with Nike, and they called and they said, hey, we got a spot open for this like Nike sort of campaign. I can't really tell you anything about, but you know, you've been selected, but here's the caveat: I need your passport, and I need you to confirm that you want to do it, because I need to book your flight today. I was like, no, the zone we were going to has no cell service. So I mean, I would have lost that opportunity had I gone up that day. So yeah, that was that was my first like sort of transitional sort of stage, I guess. But I also just, I knew inside me, like, I think that year or the year before, I went to Japan for the 4th time. And I was shooting with the Solomon crew, and we were going to the same zones and same jumps that I had already gone to like 3 times. And the first time with girls that were hitting the same size jumps, and it was like Jamie and Gretchen and Marie Frost, and they were killing it. And I was just like, why? Like, this world is so big. There's so many mountains. There's so much snow out there. Like, why are we going to the same zones? But as a photographer, you don't generally get to dictate that when you're working with high with athletes of that caliber. So I'd find the same thing in Whistler. Like, we're going to the same jumps. I don't want to build a jump. I want to hit, I want to shoot organically. I want to shoot lines. I want to shoot, stuff that you don't have to spend more than 5 minutes on. And that wasn't really happening. So I knew I was getting burnt out, and it's so my personality to be like all or nothing. So it was kind of like, I was definitely like battling with myself at the end there. Like, you want to like, the inspiration is just kind of not there. And the money, honestly, I hate to say it, but like, yeah.
At one point you have to put your selfish needs in front of, doing something just for the sake of doing it. You have to be like, look at the big picture and be like, okay, well, where am I going if I'm going to continue this? You noticed a red flag when you Transworld in 2015 was like, okay, we have to. And I feel like 2015 was 2008 was the crash, but it's crazy that ripple effect. In 2015, I feel like still there was a big wave that came, and it was like they were trim and fat. And it was just like, if any brand was like, and that was the big digital move to like social media and Facebook, and then photographers doing it for nothing and diluting what what photography stood for the last 20 years in snowboarding. Is like everyone started devaluing everybody by doing everything for free or for basically nothing. And then it was like kind of a good time for you to be like, okay, like that was a really good time for you to notice that things were changing and that you were kind of burnt out on going to the same features. One thing I want to touch base on there too is that shooting with Aaron Leyland, and someone who's been filming in the Whistler backcountry for almost 20 years, it's like, I just had him on the podcast and he said the exact same thing. He was like, he gets so burnt on going to the same zones. That's the reason why he has all these tools now. And he has 2 saws and a GPS just to go anywhere new, so he doesn't have to film on the same shit. Because similar to you, like you brought up at the very beginning of the podcast, when you were going out with Scott Shaw and your brothers from a young age, you like the whole exploring and finding a new beautiful thing in the mountains that nobody has shot a photo on. And it was exciting and new. But if you go to Japan 4 times in a row and you go to the exact same pillow popper that everybody in snowboarding has been filming on for the last 10 years, and you as a photographer already know that 100 photos have been taken on this same pillow popper, it's like, okay, I can't do it anymore. It's just like,
Right.
I get it. And snowboarders, the reason why we want to go back to that same spot is because it's like, it's a guarantee. And if the trip isn't going that well, it's like, this is a guarantee way for me to land something. The transitions lined up, but the photographers and the filmers are like, oh God, please don't take me to that bump again beside that tree. So I get it.
Right? Well, and as snowboarders, you still have that uncertainty of like, am I going to land it? Like, what trick am I going to do on this? But like, the chance of success is higher. But for a photographer, particularly a photographer, because I shouldn't say that doesn't matter if you don't land, but like, it matters less if you don't land it perfectly or whatnot. But that uncertainty is totally gone. Like, I know where we're going in Japan. That sucks. Like, maybe it doesn't suck the first 3 times, but the 4th time you're like, okay, let's just go, like, what's on the other side of this mountain? And you want to be efficient. So it's like, it's a weird battle. And with photographers, like, you have less say, unless you're a staff photographer for a brand that's working with the same movie crew all year long. As a photographer, you're hopping around with different crews. So you can't be like, hey guys, I don't think we should go to this. We should go over here, because you have no idea what the fuck they've done all year. you have no idea what assets they have or like what's really important to them. They're like they're driving that, you know. At least
Crew vibes is a big thing too. Like every crew that you would switch to has a totally different dynamic. Some are going to want to get up late and smoke dope. And then like, and you got to read that if you're going to go film with like Bozrec or Dope, you know, you know what you're getting into. Not that they don't produce and stuff like that, but it's a different workflow than if you're going out with somebody like, you know, Torstein and stuff like that in his prime. It's like, you know, you're going out there and you know you're doing big days and you're doing big builds, or, you know, hopefully and hopefully you're enjoying all that type of shooting, because like you said at the end there, you wanted to shoot a lot of natty stuff. And I think that when you started transitioning out of snowboard photography, that's when snowboarding really started heading out of the build a cheese wedge phase, which kind of started fizzling out a bit in like 2017, 18. A lot of people started riding more natty terrain and not building as much. And if they were going to build, it would just be like a couple blocks instead of like when you were filming the UC Oxenden, Mikey Rents, and Mark Sollers kind of like boom era in the Whistler backcountry, Rusty, people were building, you know, it's like you get out there, Bluebird Day, you build, you know, a 10 block high jump or a 7 high block jump, or if you're going out with Dan Breezy or Dustin Craven, everybody was doing it. If you come to Whistler, you build the jump and it's 10 blocks high, takes all day. You all spin off it 3 times, the day's over. There's very few crews back then that would be riding like, okay, let's go out and do 30 laps organically. It's also really hard to shoot that style of photography. I think that your eye though would do really well in translating that. So it's unfortunate that you left soon, because I would still like to be shooting with you out there. It's just me.
Oh, thank you. I still have fun. Like I love doing it. It's actually like surprising on how few people call because they think you like left. Like I never left. I just don't live in Whistler and have it.
You'll always be a snowboard photographer, and you'll always be a snowboarder. I also had Kevin Griffin on the podcast. He said just because I left snowboarding for 8 years or whatever like that and lived in Bali doesn't mean I'm not a snowboarder. It's like, you know, I'll be a snowboarder for life, and you'll be a snowboarder and a snowboard photographer for life. That's your roots. Well, skateboarding is your roots, but snowboarding is your big roots. That's like your foundation. So it's like you'll always do that. It's just you don't want to go to Japan for a 5th time and go hit the same bump.
And hit the same bump. But like if you know, like my client, like you know, I work with Rip Zone, a lot of Canadian brand, and do their campaign. So we're really shooting up at Kicking Horse and stuff this year. And you know, like now that I'm older and stuff, like I don't you take so much of the like the personal stuff out of it. Like I don't care if we're hitting the same thing, we're going to be efficient today, like that's awesome. But also I think also when you do it less and you don't like live it, then it becomes more inspiring and more, you know, you become more grateful because it's not just like this repetitive thing that's happening over and over again.
Yeah, you get to take a step back and realize that, you know, you get to look at everything differently. I feel like it's the classic saying that when you live somewhere, eventually you take that beauty for granted. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter where you live in the world. Eventually you become, that's the norm. You know, if you move to Mexico because it's your dream to live on a beach, if you live there for 10 years, eventually you'll take it for granted. And then it'll take you to live somewhere else to realize that Mexico is the most beautiful place in the world. You know, my mom and dad are always like, oh my God, you live in Whistler. It's so beautiful. Well, when I go back home to Winnipeg and we go to the lake and stuff, the sunset and the orange and the reds that you get in the sky, you just don't get that here. It's crazy. Like prairie sunsets are wild. Looks like it's burning. It's so cool. And I'm like, that's beautiful. Like, and my mom and dad are just like, oh, what would it be like to live in the mountains? So, I mean, you take a few years off of shooting snowboarding and you get to go to Kicking Horse and reshoot it. You'll go back with a fresh set of eyes and a new perspective, and you'll probably even shoot differently and stuff and have a different appreciation for that same art that you once were burnt out on.
Yeah. What do they say? Time apart makes the heart grow fonder or strong. Fonder, yeah.
Fonder and stronger, possibly. Was there ever a point where you were burnt out on photography?
No.
No way, because it's never ending, eh? It's just like you can always just get creative with it. That's cool. Because snowboarding for me, if somebody asked me that, I would say yes. There was a few points where I was like, fucking, my body's destroyed. I don't have a sponsor right now. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. That's beautiful.
I bet in like sports photography or like or you're on staff or something, you're shooting all day, like every day, which also like helps motivate you. But when like now with commercial stuff, like you don't get to shoot all day. You don't get to like, like if you're a skateboard photographer, you can go out like almost every day with your like crews and like try and like create stuff and stuff. But like as a commercial like freelance photographer, like man, I don't know anyone that like gets to shoot 5 days a week. So there's also like, you just want to shoot more, But yeah, I don't think I've ever like burnt out on photography. There's definitely like stuff that I don't like shooting as much as other stuff, but that usually just comes down to like personal stuff, or like, shooting a wedding, or like people aren't vibing, or I don't know, stuff like yeah. It's no big deal though. Like it's really like, oh, I'd way rather be doing this than most things. So
100%. So your camera setup, you started shooting on film, you went to digital. What are you shooting with nowadays? What's your kit look like?
Yeah, I still have a 1DX Mark II. There is another version, a newer version that just came out. It's probably been 8 months since it came out now. It's not that much better. So I still have that other camera. It's also, yeah, it's great. I have, I've always been Canon. So I think I have every lens you could possibly want. Spoiled like that, but just, after like shooting for 20 years, it's easy to collect that, you trade in the ones that aren't as good.
How many lenses do you need? Aren't there like 3, a small fisheye, a bigger fisheye, and then a long lens, and then
well, when you're so engulfed in it, I don't know. You need all the lenses. You need the fisheye, you need the wide, you need the wide zoom, you need the next wide, you need the 50, the 85, you need the 100. I have a lens that I bought specifically for surfing. That's a 200 to 400 with a 1.4 extender on it. That's amazing for surfing. It's like a $12,000 lens.
Wow. Is that the most niche lens you have? That like, is there one lens you're like, I didn't need this, but I bought it?
But that's like an asset. Like it hasn't depreciated in value. Like I went to go try and find it used, and you couldn't really find it used at the time. I actually think I looked last year and it actually had depreciated, but for the longest time it didn't depreciate. And now there's like apps out here that you can like share, like rent out your gear. So it gets rented out because it's like probably only 3 people in LA area have that lens. So it does get rented out, and it's really cool. Like I bring it a lot. I don't get to shoot with it a lot, but like when you're like shooting running or something, you're like, okay, how am I going to make this like, because stuff gets repetitive and boring. The actual like sport or the movements and stuff. So you have to think how are you going to do it differently? Like what's something that you haven't been done or like hasn't been done? Okay, like maybe if we shoot with like a 500 and we get like these mountains in the background, like that's something that's cool. That can't, so I try and bring it and apply it to other things that are not sport and stuff. So I haven't sold it. I haven't departed with it. But it kind of collects dust for sure.
You rent out your $12,000 lens. Like, who's renting this? And what I've rented, Nintendo 64 back in the day. I mean, like, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to be renting out my like nice things to people. I feel like that's a big boom right now. Like companies like Toro that are renting, you can rent out your cars, etc., like that. Is there some sort of like insurance if they destroy your lens or?
Yeah, 100%. Peer-to-peer platforms, I swear, are like, they are the way of the future. But yeah, it's this app is called ShareGrid, and it's really good actually, because going to like Milk or like one of the studios that rents everything kind of is like a lot of work, or it might be like kind of far and you can't pick up at actually I think they're actually open 24 hours, but it just seems like it's far and maybe they don't have everything and it's so official. But this one you like put a replacement value, so everyone has to get insurance before they come get it, and the replacement value is that's the terms they agreed to. So like they have to pay $11,000 if they fuck up the lens, and like no one's gonna do that. Cars are a little bit different, but it's also the same thing, like at one point you're kind of like, well, I hope they fuck up my camera because it's 3 years old and they're gonna have to buy me a new one. That's great.
Oh man.
I've rented out. I have like underwater housing, and I've rented it out. That gets rented out more often because people don't have that, and it's it's like $100 to rent or something. And they are specific to a specific camera. So I never rent out my camera.
Like the body.
Yeah, I never rent it out just because I don't know what if like sometimes I get called the night before and for a photo shoot the next day, like things happen. So you just, just don't touch my sensor, and you just don't know what's gonna happen. But once I rented it to the guy because he needed it, and with the water housing, and at first I was like, fuck, this is sketchy. And I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Like it's who cares if he fucks it up? I don't need it tomorrow. I don't think I need it tomorrow. You can run down the street and buy a new one. Like,
so those are primarily for surfing. Do you buy any other niche lenses for any other action sports photography? I mean, is there kind of like, if you're going to shoot, I mean, we haven't really touched base on that, but you shoot a variety of action sports, whether it's skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, moto. I mean, you truly you do a little bit of everything. Do you have like a few lenses that like are better for moto or better for
certain things? Well, like I have to say, like the 35, the 50, and the 85 are definitely my most used lenses. Like if I'm just to go anywhere for the day, those are what's going to be in my bag.
What if you can only bring one?
Sorry, if I can only bring one. Oh, that's a loaded question. Where are we going?
Shooting portraits of friends and landscapes.
Well, shooting portraits like the 85 is really nice, but if you're gonna throw landscapes in there, then probably have to go more with a 50. For anything else that you can like get more up close and personal, like a 35 is better. So the 35 is like a little bit wider, so you actually have to get closer to people, and then it gives you like a little bit more perspective. But the bokeh and stuff of a 50 or an 85 is just like really nicer. And then like if you're an Instagram photographer, like you're gonna take a 24, absolutely, because it's a little bit wider but doesn't like skew things. But if you're at that point, they have like when I started zoom lenses, or when I went to school, like zoom lenses were not good. They were not good. They weren't that sharp. They like, I don't know, I really only shot with them like out of the helicopter because you needed to be able to adjust, and you can't like change your lens. But nowadays, like they have way better zoom lenses. So like the 16 to 35, I think it is, that Canon makes is, I actually use that lens now. It's like one of the only zooms I use because it is 16 to 35, which is so great. It's such like a wide range. But yeah.
What are like some basic camera pointers do you have? Do you have like a routine for your camera if you're bringing it out for the day? Do you have like, is there, when you get home, do you have to like dust the whole thing off or something like that? Like what's some like basic insight into like, how you care for your camera?
Okay, well, so one thing when I was shooting snowboarding, and like I think most photographers will probably agree with this, is that they hate editing. They like, it's fun to edit like the photo once you find it, like a good one, but especially in snow, you shoot so many bad photos, or if you're shooting for someone for the day, you're shooting like a few thousand photos, and it's hard to get through all those. So my first piece of advice, and I wish I could have told myself when I was younger, is you get home and you edit. You plug those photos in and you edit, or you do it the next day, but like you do it right away and you do not procrastinate, because by the time you're shooting the next thing, you're over those, but you're actually still inspired like at that point, or you're like keen to like see what you shot right away. And it's just so, I don't know, for some reason you can go fast, you can go quick, and it's like, it's nice, and then it's done. It's like making your bed in the morning. Like it sounds shitty and we procrastinate on it sometimes, but like it is the art of finishing a project. Like you went to sleep, then you got up. To finish that, you have to make the bed. So it's like in photography, like if you go and shoot the photos and then you finish them, like you actually create them. And holy shit, it will get you way further with clients. If you can tell a client like, yeah, I'll send you the photos next week, and they wake up in the morning the next day after you shot and they have a batch of selects to choose from the day before, they are like, I mean, pleasantly surprised, especially if you did it like, yeah, you did a good job on time and were cheap. I mean, I don't suggest you go cheap, but you know, they say you can only have 2 of the 3 things, but if you can accommodate the 3, like you'll get somewhere. So that would be the biggest thing for me. Also, just, I don't know, it's pretty easy. And for some reason people find it hard, but like, check your batteries, check your card. Do not take a card that has other photos on it. Like clear your card at home or, you know, on the shoot, or have a shit ton of cards. But even when you have a shit ton of cards, it's like hard. As soon as you start shooting, you're like, oh my God, I didn't format my card. Can I format it now? Or you're spending half the time like deleting photos one by one, and you're,
Oh, that's my biggest pet peeve as a rider. And the amount of that, I would say that's happened so many times to me. It's like you're in the middle of a sesh, like hiking a jump or a rail, and the photographer's like, oh, my card's full. And then they're like, just give me a minute. And you see them just going through selects they don't think are good, and they're deleting them, going through their viewfinder. And you're like, I almost have like an anxiety attack, because I'm like, what if this photographer doesn't realize that that's how I want to look, and they just deleted my frame? Like, I want them to be able to like go through them in full size on their computer and make sure that they are sending me the best selects and are sending the magazine the best selects, and not quickly in a session, because they're rushing, deleting my photos that I'm working so hard to get.
it's and like nowadays there's not really an excuse. Like extra batteries are not like, that is something that you can't do. Like you can't charge a battery in the backcountry. Also, it's cold, so they last less time. But like batteries are not expensive these days. There's a thing, it's called Amazon Prime. Swear to God, you can order batteries and they'll be delivered like the next day. Depends where you live. You live in the mountains.
Swear to God.
It's a few days, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's like batteries and cards. Like if you can't afford those 2 things, like I get it, but at the same time, if you're out there doing this, you can probably afford it. Just do it. Or, you know, become super, super, super good at checking your stuff the night before, formatting those cards. Always like hide a few cards in your camera kit or your battery with like your pack or whatever. So, you know.
These are some good tips.
Yeah.
I feel like it's funny because they seem very
Obvious.
Obvious. Yeah, exactly. But they do get overlooked, you know.
They're like so obvious that you like forget, you know what I mean?
What about the whole like, when you get home? I mean, I got some cameras. I'm definitely like full rookie. What did you say again? And point and pray. That's me right now. I'm a point, click, and pray and hope. And but a lot of times I go on the beach, it gets sandy. You know, you go outside, it's humid or whatever. Should you be taking your lenses off of your body every time, like when you get home, to like air things out and stuff like that? Or should I buy one of those blowers, those little squeezy things, and to make sure like to air? I see photographers all the time with this little, like, I don't know what it is. It's like red, and you grab it and squeeze and a bunch of like air comes out. I've always like looked at that tool and I'm like, fuck, I gotta buy that just to make it look like I know what I'm doing. But I think it actually serves like a purpose.
Yeah, is it an SLR? So the lens does come off.
Yeah.
That was obvious. Yeah. So I mean, the best way not to get your sensor dirty is to never take off the lens. But you know, if you have more than one camera, then you're gonna take it off. I would say like a Pelican is really great. The Pelican cases, if you know you're going to the beach or like a moist place. And then, you know, when you like buy new shoes and stuff, and there's those moist packs, there's those little pack things in there that says do not eat.
Yeah.
Those things like actually extract moisture. So they like capture the moisture. So like always keep those things, throw them in your bags.
That's a sick pro tip right there.
Cool. There's I can't remember what the company is called, but there's I think I just got it at like you know, a trade show in like Denver or whatever. Or maybe it's Insoles. Is that the Chris Mausman, I think.
Yeah.
Travis Ride from them. So they have those things that you put in like your shoes.
Remind, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be like a good thing. You know, I'm sure there's companies that like make them now too. But yeah, the Pelican case like keeps all, you know, those Pelican cases can go in the water. So like those are tight.
Like a dry bag.
Yeah.
Dang.
But I mean, the dry bag, like it gets tossed around. Like you don't want to fuck up the lens. Like really at the end of the day, it's like the glass is like where it's at. Because cameras like they do cycle through and the technology like changes, but like your glass, like I have a fisheye, you know, that's over a decade old, like, and it's still perfect and great, and I'll never have to replace it. They don't have a better fisheye. They've tried to come out with a better fisheye. They don't even make this one anymore. But you know, the glass is where it's at. Invest in glass. But yeah, cleaning out your camera, like, I mean, at the end of the day, to really get it done, you have to take it in to like get professionally done. And if you're starting to see like marks on it, you know, there's swabs that you can use. And I use them to like clean my camera. You see those specs and it's fine. But, you know, if you're shooting a lot over time, like you need to go take it in and get it professionally cleaned by the company that makes it or a really trusted third party. Because you don't want to touch your sensor. Like you really don't. Touch as little as you can.
Point and shoot. Do you have one? And do you have a recommendation?
My point and shoot is the Epic. It's like it's a little Epic, but it's almost like a disposable camera. It's a film camera. Otherwise, like the iPhone is pretty amazing. They teach you in school, like your best camera is the camera that you're gonna take with you. So like the one that you have, you know, if you can afford a Leica like all day long, you'd probably take it everywhere because it looks cool too.
Oh, my friend has a Leica that he inherited from his grandfather, and he has a Leica film and digital, and he has the one. It's the same camera, but it's like the film one was the model before they switched to digital, and oh my God, his photos are so sick. It's right. Like he brings both. And so if he feels like taking film, and they have like a different look. Like he shoots black and white lifestyle mainly on the film one. Cause I just feel like black and white film looks so different than on digital. Just like, do you have a preference of what you like more? Like, do you like film photography more? Do you like digital or, you know, or do you like both? Or I don't know.
No, I like digital. I truly like digital. Just, I don't know. You know, I started in film, you know, when I went to school, like, because I actually did go to a photography school after high school. And for the first 6 months, we were just like in the dark room and we weren't allowed to touch digital cameras, even though they were out. I shouldn't say we weren't allowed, but for our assignments and stuff, they didn't teach us anything about them until that we passed the first semester or whatever. But there is presets that you can buy or grab from your friend nowadays that like mimic the film stuff, you know. So, and honestly, for clients like Oakley, I do a lot of editing for them and stuff, and we throw on those filters, those presets, and that adds grain and it looks like film. So I have to say, like, I like the look of film, but I like the efficiency and the greatness of digital. And I feel like I'm supposed to say film. And maybe that's why I don't know. I think digital is great. The feedback is right there. It's like
all my friends who've shot photography for a long time, I feel like they do definitely like, they like film, but they all shoot primarily 98% of the time with digital. Cause I mean, a lot of them did grow up shooting with film and they understand the frustrations. You don't have that, especially if you're working with a client, those presets can really add an appeal to a certain client pretty easily. You know, you throw a preset over that's like, oh, that'll fit that image. Like Vans probably has like a certain look that'll look really good with a certain preset, or somebody who likes oversaturated colors, you know, might be a little bit easier to edit with digital than film. Cause I mean, when you put the presets over film, it looks shitty.
Yeah. Well, like the whole thing is with digital cameras and the ability to shoot in RAW is like you're basically having the image and you're shooting the image on the sensor, we'll call it the film, but you're deciding afterwards how it's getting developed, and you can get it developed 100 different ways, 100 different times. Whereas with film, you drop it off at the developer and you have to decide right then and there, like, do you want to push it? Do you want to pull it? Like, so that alters the exposure, but not as, it's not as dumb as it sounds. Like it's not as easy as it sounds. Like it alters quite a bit of other things, but also, you know, you had to decide before you shot on that film, do you need richer greens? Like, do you want to shoot with Fujifilm? Do you want richer yellows and reds? Like, do you need to shoot with Kodak? So like those decisions are having to be made beforehand. Whereas with the digital stuff, you're able to make those decisions afterwards, and you're able to tailor them to different clients. Like, is this going to editorial, or is this going to this brand that wants black and white photos? So you have more freedom.
Do you have a sponsor for cameras or anything like that? Do you get free stuff? I feel like camera companies don't really need to do that.
I think if you won the Pro Photographer Showdown, that Olympus sponsors some people. But yeah, Nikon actually sponsors people too. I am never been sponsored by a camera company. I was sponsored by Ruka for like 8 years as an artist, for being cool, quote unquote. And that was great. They paid for a little bit, or otherwise I just got free clothes for a lot of years. But yeah, no sponsors. In the bag, I would say, or outside of the bag, but on the shoots, I often bring a step ladder. I'm 5'7", and I feel like people that are 6'10" would have a great advantage, because you can always go lower, but you can't go higher without a ladder or something else. If not, like I take my Pelican case usually. That's usually what I go with now, unless you know unless you can't bring the Pelican, you got a backpack, but that also helps. Like that will get you like a foot higher. So standing on that,
shooting those tall models.
Well, not just like tall models, but it's just like a different perspective, you know. Like if you're always just standing up straight and shooting from this 5'7" perspective, that you don't do that as an artist. Like you need perspective. You need to like crouch down. You need to go over here. You want to get like some foreground. You want to get the, you know, and it creates different, like there's a whole psychology to photography in terms of like, you know, if you're shooting up at someone, you know, you're looking up at them. So they are all of a sudden there's this power that is created, versus if you're shooting down, like if you shot the president looking down on them, like that's not really like something that would be like quote unquote like the way to shoot them, if that makes sense. Like
Totally. No, there's a certain way to like make somebody look like strong, and there's a certain way to show somebody look like, you know, pathetic and weak, you know what I mean? There's angles to do that. Hence why, I mean, if you take it out of photography and bring it to cinematography, there's so many different angles, you know. Shooting from a bottom angle, it's like totally different, and then with the music, it's got like a totally different feel than what you were saying from a 5'7" kind of angle, from like a shot down angle. Yeah, it gives a total different perspective and a vibe with that. I mean, I'm not going to tread or act like I know what I'm talking about though, because
well, you know what you're talking about. Like we all know what we're talking about. Like we all have cameras. We're all photographers now, like with our phones and our Androids, and like, you know, we all watch like, you know, if you're living in the century, you're, you know, 2 feet in a heartbeat, like you're probably like watching TV and stuff. So like, you know, that everyone becomes not proficient at it, but like we see these things, we might not know why or what exactly we like, but we know what we like when we like it.
Totally.
Or like what mood or creation.
We just got some technical difficulties there. Tell us what happened. This is gold.
My partner and a couple people are working out on the house outside, and they just dug too deep and ripped apart the internet cable. So now I'm on my phone. I tried to hotspot from my phone to my computer, but
so do you have any advice for the next wave of Ashley Barkers trying to make it in, you know, maybe being a photographer, maybe something else, but do you have any advice? Because I mean, you really accomplished your goals. Let's say you definitely manifested where you wanted to go, and boom, got there. So you got any advice for that younger generation?
Oh, so much advice.
Oh, I don't know. I guess like I think for everyone, like I have to tell myself so often, like, don't take things personally because it's like rarely about you. You know, like in everything, like someone gets mad at you, it's rarely about you. It's usually about their internal issues or like something that's going on with them. And then like, yeah, like just care less about what other people like think. Not like about how you treat other people or, you know, yeah, like, or who you are as a person, but more like don't not do something because you want a boy to like you know, or like I quit skateboarding when I was a teenager because my neighbor would tell me like, don't do that, skateboarding for boys, and like you're a pretty girl, like look at your shins when you do that, you know, and like now he would tell me to skateboard all day, like you know, just like so don't, you know, and I regret that, like, you know, probably why I stopped, but like maybe it was good, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, like listen less to like those other external voices, especially from other guys, and then just be careful who you surround yourself with, because at the end of the day, like relationships are everything, but also like in your career they definitely are, like they definitely are. So yeah, surround yourself with smarter, successful, and uplifting people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about surround yourself with a good group for wherever you want to be in life. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, if it's important for you to reach success, then hang out with people that are successful. If it's important to you to spend time in nature and be more grounded, then hang out with people that spend time in nature and you're more grounded. Like if you need to go somewhere, hang out with the community that's already been there or that's going there, because that's the only way to really get there.
Yeah, and you can switch it up and you can fail, like it's how we learn, right? Like
Yeah,
you don't
failing's
learn from
dope.
success, you learn from something. It's cool, and most of us are really afraid of that. We are really afraid of failure or being rejected, you
Yeah,
know.
failure is a big
So
one. You know what I mean? You put out your photography and no one likes it. Not that that's the case, but you know, if that was the case, it feels shitty at the beginning. You know, you put out a podcast, no one likes it, and you feel shitty. You put out your candle company and no one likes it, and you feel shitty. You put out your hat company and no one buys your hats at the beginning, you feel shitty. It's like you, I think so many people get steered away from their goals and ambitions in life because um at the beginning it's on the road to success in anything, it's not easy. That's the reason why success, when you get something done, feels good, or else it wouldn't. If it was just everyone could just reach their goals immediately, there would be no high of achieving that goal. But even when you get to that goal, you have to know that that's not the say all be all. Just because you get there, that's not the answer either. You constantly have to be evolving and looking forward to that next thing. And in some aspects, like I feel like sometimes I look forward to the next thing too much, and sometimes I don't. So you know what? I don't have all the answers, but you want to take it from here?
well, Tony Robbins says it really good. The only way that you can truly feel happy is from contribution and growth. So you need to be contributing and growing to
That's good.
You know, be happy. So there is no end all be all. It's, you know, you're constantly growing and contributing. You know, when you're a grandma, you're giving back to your grandkids, like, because that's, you know, you're contributing. That like makes you happy. You might be growing less, but even still, you're still always, you know, there's always room to grow.
And that's exactly what you're doing by coming on this podcast. You are contributing because you're inspiring the new wave of, you know, who knows what wave, but you're definitely doing something by coming on here because their story's dope. You know what I mean? I think that there was a lot of like little hurdles throughout your life where you could have just been like, this is difficult. And there's, yeah, you definitely help pave the way for action sports, females to get in the game. You know what I mean? I feel like there wasn't that many girls shooting, you know, film, photography, or even snowboarding for that matter, because it is one of those sports that's similar to that analogy you brought up of or not an analogy, and actually a thing that happened to you. You know, your friends telling you to quit skateboarding because your shins are all banged up, and that's not what girls are supposed to do. Like that is exactly what I hope to achieve every once in a while on this podcast, is that if you want to do something, you know, there's no better time to do something than in 2021.
Yeah, and do it and get the fuck off your phone. Like, people are on their phones so much. I haven't, like, I don't I have an Instagram account, obviously, but like, I don't know, maybe I've been on there like 2 hours in the last year. It's or like if I have a project where I need to hire people and I can't find them or looking for a location, that's when I'll like put stuff on my story. But like, man, you know, there's like that little in your settings, there's like that battery thing, and it'll tell you how much like time you spend on the phone, and it'll tell you if you're on Instagram for like 10 hours a week, man, like think about all the stuff you could do without that. And like, I'm sorry if that's your avenue for making money or whatever, then like, yeah, then you should be spending 40 hours there in a week or whatever, you know, like I can't remember how much, you know, the influencer of all influencers who started the influence, Paris Hilton, like she says she has a documentary and she says she's on her phone. Like it's insane, like how much she's on her phone and on Instagram and social and stuff. But man, if you don't need to be on there, like get off. Like it's I don't feel good anytime I'm on there, you know? Maybe I shouldn't say that. Like sometimes the only times I go on there, it's like to check in on someone or like to find a little bit of inspiration. But just yeah, I don't know.
No,
we're better off without it.
Yeah, I think we're better off without it, and it's draining. Yeah, it's not good. The science is out. It's pretty obvious that being on your phone does not make you a happier person, and what you're trying to achieve, basically what all humans are trying to achieve, is to just float on through this life and be relatively happy. And I mean, happiness isn't a guarantee. There's peaks and valleys, but I don't think your phone's helping you along the journey. If you use it a little, like you know, a few hours a week, then of course, you know what I mean. You check your Facebook, you know, you check on a few of your important friends, you know, you make your one post, easy peasy. But if you're on it for 3-4 hours a day, and it's not fully your business to be on the phone, then don't be on it. But there wouldn't be jobs like there's so many people who rely on people being on their phones for their jobs. So people it's incentivized for everyone to be on their phones, because that's the money mover now. That's where all the biggest companies in the world are on your phone. Like the biggest companies in the world are just praying that we all spend more time on our phones, because that's how they sell advertising dollars. So it's until that we all realize that being on our phone sucks, that then they'll move that money somewhere else off the phone. But the more people spend on their phone, the more the phone will improve, and the more technology will get put into it, the more enticing it'll be. So as soon as we all realize that the phone sucks, then less money will go into the phone.
100%. It's like your vote. Yeah. 100%. Have you ever seen those skits about like what happens if the internet like went out and there was no more internet? The world would be over.
I think the world
would. Haven't seen any.
I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming people would kill each other if the internet died. Like all the money, like nobody would know how to do anything. It's scary.
It's crazy. Yeah.
If the internet crashes tomorrow, everybody on my podcast, be a good person. Remember the values, people. All right, so I got 10 questions for you. These are just kind of like on the top of your head, whatever comes to mind. Number one, favorite action sport to shoot.
Favorite action sport to shoot? Oh, shit. They're all so fun. You know, I've been shooting dirt biking lately. Only because it's right here and I'm learning how to dirt bike, and that's been like pretty cool and fun, but only because it's new and fresh, I know. But oh man, I don't know. I guess I like snowboarding the best. But they're all fun. You know, surfing's really fun if you're in the water. It sucks from the land. Skateboarding, I just don't like know well enough, like to really, you know, be super confident. If shooting like technical stuff and stuff. So yeah, we'll stick with snowboarding. It's super fun.
Well, you dropped the nollie heel in there, so you know what's up. At the beginning of the podcast, you clearly know something. If you said nollie heel flip, you're not clueless.
Well, I do know what a nollie heel flip is now, but I didn't then. Yeah.
All right, number 2, favorite photographer.
Like of all time.
I thought it would be cool maybe give
this...
somebody a little bit more relevant, and then maybe somebody that's more I don't know. I'll let you take that. Who's your favorite photographer?
Okay, wow. I just did like this huge pitch for Red Bull on this. You know, and I think the one that stuck with me the best, like, it is Jake. Is it Darwin? His name. He's a skateboard photographer, and he's doing stuff really different and really cool. Like, he just has such a fresh vibe.
My favorite photographer in skating would be French Fred, as far as like a I don't know if you've heard of him. He shoots a lot of black and white photos. It's like architecture meets skateboarding, kind of. I mean, I feel like his younger days, he used to shoot a lot of like more about the skateboarder, and then the more his photography grew, the more he would incorporate like the shapes and the buildings, and I don't know, and light, and just lots of cool black and white photos. French Fred is definitely somebody that's inspired my pathetic photography.
No, Fred, he has a look. He has like a really good, and that's like cool thing about skateboarding is you can like get these like crazy cool perspectives, and like there's more like liberty, I want to say. Shoots people like pretty small, but yeah, he's definitely got that look. He shoots with a Leica a lot, so he also gets a lot of intimate moments and is like really in there. He's also a very good skateboarder himself. I actually he won. I was in the Pro Photographer Showdown with him, and he won. He is, but I've known him, or like I haven't known him. I've looked up to him my whole career as well. Mason Masson. I'm fudging.
Yeah, Mason Machon from Whistler.
No, Mason Masson. He's actually like I love Mason, but this is like a water photographer. He's got some really cool fresh stuff. There's an iconic sports photographer. He's not so much action sports, but he's very editorial look. His name is John Hewitt, like Huet. His stuff's really good. Tal Roberts, he's doing some cool stuff. Anthony
Tal's
Smith,
sick.
Yeah, in the bike world. Frode, he's always been amazing, but he's kind of pulled out more. A good like basketball photographer, Miko Lim. Corey Wilson, he shoots surfing as well. He's gone more commercial these days, but like he's cool. Some new like up and comers like Mike Dossie. He's got some cool stuff. Yeah, there's a lot really cool people. Cameron Strand is another one. You don't see that often, but he's great.
Dope.
Yeah.
All right, number 3, worst trend in photography.
Worst trend. Oh, the HDR, like the over clarified, basically like over sharpened and over saturated era. That was bad. That was really bad.
Yeah. I feel like I remember, I have lots of friends who use the saturation filter in their old photos, and I remember being like, dear Lord, that is the orangest, reddish, greenest photo I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was bad. Please go away.
All right, favorite snowboarder.
Okay, so like I'm so biased because I like people that I like really like working with, and as a like storyteller, I think I love people that are really like authentic and can be really vulnerable, not just in front of the camera but in front of other people. So John Jackson, definitely is one of the funnest people to shoot with, extremely talented, won't shy away from like, oh, can you do this? Like I feel like I can be myself with him, and he's just like such a legend and gets it done, and always like, yeah, always stepping up to the big stuff.
Yeah, John Jay's a boss. You got a girl in there that's one of your faves?
Favorite girl, well, I used to shoot with like Jess Camira a lot.
Sick.
And I don't remember a day that we didn't go home without a published photo. She just has so much respect. And it's such like a symbiotic relationship in terms of, I'm not going to waste your time, don't waste my time. Dude, when I first met her, she would like go and set up things and then tell me to come. And that like no one has ever, I don't, that's not even, it wasn't even necessary. But like, and she would, I felt bad. Sometimes she would, I swear, like just kill herself over something to like make sure I got a photo that I was really happy with, and she got the photo that she was really happy with. But it's really cool when someone like wants to like see it and contribute, and like she works as hard, probably harder than I do. So, and like really like eats that up. So that was, she's definitely a standout. There's so many amazing people to shoot with though. Like, yeah, but
yeah, Jess is a really cool one. She's a huge inspiring role model these days. She's started a production company and has been giving back huge, and I'm a massive fan of Jess. I feel like the first trip I ever went, it was my first trip, but it was with you, Dwayne, Josh Voggs. We met up with Jess Camira, and that's kind of like when we all met, and I saw
Boy.
And Dyke Boy. Yeah, totally. Don't get offended, people. That's literally, that's how she goes.
Yeah, didn't Nash maybe join us on that trip too? That was insane. I think it hit like -40 that trip when we were driving through from like Winnipeg to Regina, or like Regina to Calgary or something. But
and your luggage blew off the roof. Remember?
And yeah, we didn't strap down something properly to the. I think I lost my favorite sweatshirt. Oh yeah, I lost my board bag.
You lost all your clothes. It was just all your shit was gone.
I truly became one of the crew at that point.
Yes.
Dirtbag rail.
You were a dirtbag rail boarder in its finest. Number 5, favorite surfer.
Favorite surfer. Oh, again, like I just love personality. So probably like Mason Ho. He's super fun and entertaining. There's so many good surfers. Dane Reynolds, I really love his style, and I love his MO. Like I love what he's about. You know, he said he doesn't like contests because he feels bad no matter what. If he wins, he feels bad for the other guy. If he loses, he feels bad for himself. So it's kind of like didn't like contests, and I feel like what a good person. But also he's just like amazing, phenomenal style. Yeah. But yeah, Mason's just super entertaining, and I love the creative edge of like just surfing things that other people like don't, and going to those spots. That's inspiring. But I feel like that resonates with me.
Sick. Number 6, favorite skater, because I know that you have a little bit of a skate background.
Oh, Tori. This is Tori's new company. Thank you, Tori Pudwell. Also went to his wedding, so I'm biased. I don't really like know enough about skateboarding. Like I've been in a lot of street leagues and stuff. I have so much respect for all of them. Like Nigel's just such a beast. Again, like you know what I feel like is really lacking in snowboard film is just like the whole narrative and like documentary of like actually like what happens and like what people are thinking and like and all that stuff, because that's like our connective tissue for people, like how I connect with you and how everyone sort of connects. So like I love watching like basketball. Like I don't even play basketball, but I love watching like documentaries on basketball, and there's so much narrative and like story behind it. And I feel like a lot of skateboarders came from a lot of adversity. That's what makes like professional skateboarders. That's what makes them so fucking good, is they needed an escape. So they started skateboarding when they were really young, and they just like put in the hours and hours and hours, because you can't think of anything else when you're doing it. So like Mag just exposed that story, and a lot of people don't, but that's what makes them a great, like who else is really good at that? Leticia Buffoni, like, she brings you into her house. She's like, doesn't really give a fuck what other people are thinking and doing, and all that. But yeah, Shane's really good. I mean, there's so many great skateboarders, but we'll go with Tori. Tori's my favorite.
Sick. Number 7, favorite shot you've ever taken.
Favorite shot I've ever taken. I mean, I really liked, I shot this jump in Rutherford with Mikey Rentz and UC Oksanen, and ended up getting 2 or 3 covers from that jump. One was Rentz, I think it just ran in Europe, and yeah, on cover of On Board, and then also the cover of Transworld. Gosh, I think it was Transworld. And then I think I'm messing that up, but UC got a cover in Europe for sure, and I think Mikey, it might have run 1 or 2 places as a cover. That was like a really it was a really hard day, like hard working day. It wasn't hard on my soul. It was great. But like it was pissing snow, like just puking. And it had to be a January because it was like a really short day. And they hit like a pretty small booter for them, big for me, but small for them. And I shot it with a fisheye and lit it up with 3 flashes. And it was just a great photo, but mostly because a lot of work went into it. I probably burnt out a flash that day because it was just so wet and moist out there. And yeah, not a lot of people want to go in the backcountry in January on a shitty day, like a puking day, and that's like kind of what I was about. So that was probably.
And so is Mikey's the same thing. Mikey's just, what Mikey lives for is being out in the backcountry. He's not riding the resort. He's just, the backcountry is his life. So he'll go out any day of the week.
Yeah. And UC, honestly, like UC, he's just a legend. Like it's pretty interesting, the dynamics of crews, but like pretty much on any given day, like Mikey would be like the leader of his crew, of like anyone he goes out with, just because he knows everything and like comes in knowledge, and you're just like, oh, okay, like Mikey's the boss kind of deal. But when UC came into town, and UC doesn't like demand this or anything at all, he's a super nice, like very, very generous, and like just
humble.
Humble human that is very approachable. And Mikey would follow him. Like you could always just tell like who was the alpha.
Yeah,
like,
Mikey's probably just got the respect card there, though. He's probably just like UC to anyone, to especially someone like Mikey, who's a Burton rider himself, who probably watched UC's whole career, was like, and Mikey came from an era when like, there's just a lot of respect for your peers, which I still think there is, but back then it was kind of different. You know what I mean? If someone had paid their dues, it's just like you kind of have a certain vibe around that person, and their clout would be like, okay, UC's here, we're gonna get UC a shot today because it'd be like going out with Devin or something like that. You know what I mean? You're just excited to be out with him. I mean, obviously UC and Mikey built a strong relationship where that kind of just dissipated and turned more into like a brotherly thing. But those beginning years must have been pretty cool for Mikey to spend out there with UC, because UC's a freaking vet.
100%. Some other like favorite days are definitely with the Yes crew, like with Roman and DCP. Those guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Those guys are nuts. They're awesome. I love shooting with them. and they respect as well, like almost like on that Jessica level. Like I remember one day like Roman saying to me, Ashley, are you okay? We didn't get a photo today. Like, is that okay? And like I go out with them so much, we always stack photos. So like I was like, oh, are you being a dick, Roman? Like, are you just joking? He's like, no, like seriously, like we didn't get any photos, but it's 2:00. Like, can we go home? Like, the day sucks. I was like, yeah, respect, thank you. Like,
That's cool. That's interesting to. I never really hear that perspective, but you know what I mean. Like I feel like even myself, maybe I look over that sometimes. But yeah, you bring up a photographer. It's not like a filmer who's on salary. You know what I mean. They make their money by the photos they get. So there is something to be said for a photographer coming up and then not getting any photos with them. It's like, you know, they're like, fuck, I just spent $250 and no one did anything.
And it goes back to like the contribution and growth, you know, like you want to grow, you want to contribute. So you got to take photos and you got to grow. You got to learn from your mistakes.
Tony Robbins. I love it.
Tony.
Number 8, career highlight.
Career highlights. Da, da, da. Okay, so there's this photo and I feel really bad because I don't know who it was, but like I said, we pluck from a lot of different things. But on my first campaign with, not my first campaign, creative directing for Nike, I was shooting for Nike Running in New York City, and they gave me like their 24 assets that they need. These are the 24 products or assets. I think each product had like an asset, but that we need. Here's put this together in a deck, and they specifically want to know like where you're going to shoot, what and how this is going to be shot. And this is in New York, like in a confined area. It's not just like the world's your oyster, any budget, you know. But like, how are you going to show this shoe faster and stronger? Or so this shoe was like, it's more grippy, like it's a grippier version of last year. And there's a photo, it's not Espen, some European photographer. Anyway, he shot Travis Rice doing a hand plant on a quarter pipe, but he used plexiglass to hand plant on the plexiglass, and the photographer has their camera underneath the plexiglass and he shoots so you can see his hand. It's a cover. And then you see Travis and he's doing a hand plant. It's really cool perspective. So just like plucking that, I used that concept and was like, that's how we can showcase the shoe. And this doesn't get done. I've never seen it. I'm sure it's been done, but I've never seen like how shooting a shoe in motion from the bottom, like of it hitting the plexiglass. I'll get under the plexiglass. Let's put some New York, you know, shoot somewhere where we can see some architecture in New York, so we have some perspective of where we're at and stuff. And I did that, and it turned out so well that they wanted to shoot a whole commercial based around it, which they actually did, and I saw. And unfortunately, I was working for an agency, so I never got to be a part of that project or whatnot. But it's still the gratification of knowing for myself. You know, I would walk into the Nike building the year after and see that commercial run, and I was like, oh, they did that. That happened. I know, like, they talked about like that was from me, but it wasn't from me. It was from the other photographer that probably got it from inspiration from somewhere else. So that was a career probably like highlight. Also, my first, just relate it back to snowboarding, but my first time going out with Mikey and Arrow, we went to Revelstoke, and that was my first time shooting with them. And my very first shot, and I was scared shitless. I drove from Whistler and I got there super late. I got there at like 1, and you know, we did get up at like 6, and I wasn't the best at snowmobiling at that point. We were going up to Turtle, which is a really hard place to go. And we built a new jump. It was really cool. And that first photo that I shot ended up being the cover of the photo annual for Snowboarder magazine. And I just thought that was so cool. And obviously Mikey loved shooting, you know, that probably netted me some accreditation, like, oh yeah, she can shoot covers. Like,
let's keep bringing her.
Yeah, that was great. You know, that's just pure luck and chance, but it was cool.
That's dope. My next question was going to be, what's your favorite photo that you've ever shot?
my favorite photo that I've ever shot. I don't know. I'd have to like look over my photos. There's a lot of years of shooting.
I think I already asked you that question. I think I asked you that for number 7.
Oh yeah, the Mikey one. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right, cancel that. Number 10, who is the GOAT? Who's the GOAT photographer?
GOAT photographer
Greatest of all time.
in action sports.
Maybe one of each, you know.
Okay,
wherever you
Richard
wanna take
Avedon.
that.
Richard, yeah.
Who?
Richard Avedon.
Never even
He's
heard of him.
passed away. He's passed away. He like started fashion photography pretty much. Yeah, cool guy, very inspiring. The GOAT of snowboard photography. Maybe, gosh, one?
Yeah, that's tough. I feel bad for you. I wouldn't even want to say.
Yeah, just I think I listed a couple before. Your perspective changes when you meet people.
Big time.
So like, people I haven't met are probably cooler. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, Rut puts in the time and what he's doing these days with like the whole large format van stuff, like Ian Rut, and when he was shooting for Forum, he was pretty awesome.
Sick.
He might be a GOAT, but like I said, like Ollie is so good. Ollie Gagnon, like Scott Surface, great photographer. Blake Jorgensen, love him. Cole Barish, he really, a lot of people try and copy Cole's style, and he really like
Moved the needle.
He really coined his own, and Kevin Zacher was a huge influence on him, so you got to give him a lot of credit as a GOAT. Blotto, Curtis, just so many. There isn't one.
There you go. You went through them all. I like it. Sick. Any final remarks? Any shout outs?
Yeah, like sick podcast. Way to go to like put this together, and
thank you.
Like so snowboarding like needed this. They needed this, and I actually like put that it's really great for you to take that initiative and do it. Hopefully you're getting a lot of support, and I'm sure you'll grow. And
no, I'm stoked. It's been a good time. Thank you so much for coming on, Ashley. You rule. What's next? What's next for you?
What's next? So I mean, I love when brands come from all different sides. Like I shot for like it's been before COVID, but like A-Shock, which is a new energy drink, and they come at you with problem, or like, how are we going to do this, help us with our image and all that stuff. So that those are my favorite projects to work on by far. Like, here's the problem, you find the solution, and even finding the solution of what's your budget is like, a lot of new brands are like, they don't know what their budget is, where versus like a more established budget might be like, or established brand might be like, hey, here's this. So I love working with startups, and as long as they do have budget, obviously, to be able to do what we want. But yeah, I started shooting dirt biking. That's been really fun. Just like I like to try new things, and but yeah, and helping other photographers, honestly. Like, that's why I started. It's a production company. It's also like a creative agency, but like I'm fine with taking a back seat and producing and having another photographer shoot. I think that's so fun, and it's so cool to like watch and like contribute in that way. So just keep working on those projects, and growing in that direction.
What did Tony Robbins say again?
That the two assets that truly make us happy or contribute fudging it up. Contribution and growth.
Contribution and growth, people. Give back, and then therefore you will grow.
Those are the things that make you happy. Yep.
All right, on that note, thanks again for coming on. Have a great day, and you rule.
Thanks, Jody. Happy Canada Day. Belated Canada Day.
Word.